On a strip of sandy soil lies a county called Norfolk. It's Ontario, south coast, you know, and it's surely not remote. If you pass through or spend a day or decide to call it home, you'll see why we love it here and are proud to call it our own. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Take in the small town atmosphere, be amazed at all that we grow. Like our kids that go and see the world and can't wait to return home. Drop a line in a placid lake or stroll along the shore. Take a tour on a peaceful country road and bound to be back for more. Of Norfolk, Norfolk, my southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. With hard work we built a dream that only willing hands could do. It's on display at our fall fairs and at all the festivals too. Erie beaches, Carolinian forests, where the flower and dogwoods bloom. Patchwork fields and rolling hills, it's just a place for you. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Norfolk, 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 you won't be a stranger long. On a strip of sandy soil lies a county called Norfolk. It's Ontario, south coast, you know, and it's surely not remote. If you pass through or spend a day or decide to call it home, you'll see why we love it here and are proud to call it our own. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long.
We'll try it once more. Good afternoon. I would like to remind everyone that our meetings are web streamed and are televised. For those in attendance, I would ask you to ensure your phones are on silence mode. Today, our camera volunteer is Bill Jackson. Thank you very much for you being here tonight. I call the order of this committee meeting. Approval of agenda. The agenda is there before you. Staff have 3 changes to the agenda. 2 are additional closed property matters, and the 3rd is the removal of a notice motion. The clerk has some corrections for a minor nature to this to note as well. Councillor.
Thank you, Chair Geisens. The 2 closed session additions we have are both related to verbal updates on property sales under Section 239C of the Municipal Act. And so we'll renumber them B and C, and 12B will become 12D on your agenda. And then the other item we're removing from the agenda the Meisner Dam notice of motion. That will come forward next week at council for vote of council, so it will be before us then. There are also some minor corrections. Items 3D and 8D both involve council delegating authorities to staff. We're recommending the addition of the review by the mayor to the delegation of authority bylaws. For item 8B, staff are recommending the removal of or upon request from the second part of the resolution, as the development charge statements will be posted on the county's website. And there's a typo on the agenda face page for item 12B. It should read, including municipal or local board employees.
Okay, thank you. Is there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Sorry?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
On the change, sorry, yes.
Could I ask council's indulgence to add an extra deputation to the meeting? Mr. John Lennox is here on behalf of Dover Coast Developments in Port Dover, and I think he wishes to speak to report PW 19-42, the servicing capacity. I believe that would need to take a 2/3 majority to allow that.
What? Okay, I need a seconder, a first and a seconder for that, yes? Okay. Van Passen and Martin? All those in favor? That is carried. That will carry through and will come out after the Dennis Trevally presentation. Moving on, I'll try that one more time. Is there any declaration of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, moving on. Consent items. We have 4 consent items listed on page 5 through 24 on your agenda. Do committee members wish to pull any of the discussions? Councillor Michele.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to pull items 3C.
Sorry, can you say that again for me, please?
I would like to pull items 3C and 3D.
Okay. And the rest?
So we'll consider the rest now, but just for the purposes of, since we've added the deputation of Mr. Lennox, I'd suggest that we address those after the Port Dover water servicing report.
Okay. Do we have to put that forward, or that's automatically going to? Okay. So those that haven't been pulled, we will deal with. Okay. There's nothing else that I have to do with that for a consent? I need a move and seconder for those that are not being looked after until after we're done, and they will come forward later on. So I need someone to move it and something. I have Councillor Mayor Chop, and I have Chris Van Passen. All those in favor? Moving on. Thank you. Okay, deputations. Norma Shop, continued support for Simcoe residential homes for adults with mental health challenges. Mr. Sharp, will you please come forward to for the podium, and remember you have 10 minutes, and I will try to provide you with a warning. Let's try that thing. Warning before you run out. Any questions? Take it forward.
I'm fine.
I
Okay.
gotta settle down. That's my problem.
All right. So as you heard, my name's Norm Sharp. My sister and I came to Simcoe 11 years ago. I've had a kind of a varied background from government administration for 11 years. I was prancing all over the world managing rock bands. And but when I came to Simcoe 11 years ago, I decided to retire from my music business, and I bought a group home that was operating in Simcoe. Simcoe Residential Home has been in town for about, somewhere between 45 and 50 years, operating as a home for adults with mental health challenges. Currently, or at the time I bought it, we had 13 beds that were funded through the province's Homes for Special Care program, and we had 5 beds that have been funded through the domiciliary hospital program of the county. And I thank you for that support. It's a significant support that has helped us. Since I bought the home, other than the first couple of months, there was quite a few vacant beds when I bought it, but I found out afterwards workers weren't sending referrals there because they weren't happy with the support they were getting. So once I bought it, the home filled up within 2 months. A home that's fully funded has allowed us to do a lot of good things for the people there and for the facility itself. We have made substantial changes to the physical structure, put in new floors, brought in all new appliances, probably 3 times over the 10 years I've had to replace appliances, and we get good ones, but you use fridges and wash machines and dryers a lot more often there, and we have to replace them fairly often. I've done better furnishings for the home, improved, and the other improvements we made that probably even more substantial, improved the diet for the residents, and that was very important. They had a poor diet when I took over that home. I know from what I'm spending on the grocery bill, and I've been able to do that because we've had a full house and fully funded. Our residents are having salads every day. They're having, instead of getting bologna 5 days a week and macaroni 6 days a week, that sort of thing, they're getting beef, they're getting chicken, and good quality stuff. We feed them healthy. And that's important because it's a contributor to their mental health. And we've noticed over the years that the cost to the province for medications has dropped substantially in our home as a result of feeding them better. So that's an improvement. Where we are today, I just want to give you a background on some of the residents we have without individually saying things. The kind of residents that we are caring for, I have residents that have both developmental delay and mental health challenges, so they're what they call dual diagnosed people. I have residents with brain injury and mental health. I have other residents with serious mental health challenges, some of which have developed later in life. Some of them have raised families, some of them have had careers, that type of thing. But in the end, they run into mental health challenges, and often that becomes a big challenge for their families. And I noticed at Christmas this year, we had 14 of my 18 residents at home for Christmas, and I wasn't happy with that. I had hoped, in previous years, we'd had maybe 9 or 10. This year it was 14. So we are kind of the family for these people too, for many of them, but we encourage families to be involved with them. That's an important part of how we care for the people. Some of the partners that we have in the community, also the last group of people we've had a couple of them and still have one with mental health and addiction issues. The addiction issues have been a challenge sometimes for us because if they bring the addiction into the home and there's flagrant use of drugs and the paraphernalia that comes with them there, we have to remove them because it's a threat to the other residents. But a couple of them we've been able to manage and help curtail their drug use and improve their representation in the community, if you want to put it that way. Some of the partners that we have in town that help us are the CMHA and provide support worker to some of my residents. Many of them don't want the supports. They're happy just to have a place to live and function. We also have CCAC that comes in. 5 of my residents currently are seniors, and so they come in to help with bathing and things like that as needed. The Resource Center is a program facility for a couple of our residents. We used to have a number. When I took over the home, about 10 would go every day off to Able Industries. But gradually over the course of the 7 years, that dropped down to Able finished providing services about 3 years ago. So a lot of the activities they have, we try to do with them on our own. We take them out to concerts, we take them to Niagara Falls, to weekend events, long weekend festivals and things like that. We make an effort to get them out on a regular basis. One of the things I note in our community that's a positive thing with mental health is Inwell is making some inroads for us by providing some beds. Many are for adults that have mental health challenges, but they're adults that are able to live independently. And that's really good, and I'm glad to see those opportunities are there. And our goal often in our home is to try and get at least one of our residents able to move into a situation like that. But we have residents in the home been there for 25 years because it's the only thing they're able to function in. So, in any event, reason I'm coming to council is to talk about, I'll give you a little more background. Last year, the Homes for Special Care program, which funds 13 of the beds, on a pilot basis, they've decided to change the program over in southwestern Ontario as part of the steering committee for that. They've moved away from the government administering the program to having administration and supports provided by CMHAs throughout southwestern Ontario. Our local CMHA could not participate in the development of the program. They said they had too many things on their plate. As a result, I got picked up by Elgin CMHA, which is St. Thomas. It's a valiant attempt, I think, at trying to modernize and improve. The HSC Act was developed over 50 years ago, and there was lots of room to improve the Act and improve the services to the residents. The challenge we've had, though, for myself, functioning now under the Elgin CMHA, is some of the rules they come up with. I'll give you an example. In December of last year, I had a call from the Brantford General Hospital. They had a Simcoe resident in the psych ward that had been there for a couple of weeks. They were ready to discharge her. She was married. Her husband had passed away a couple of months earlier, and she developed some serious repercussions, I guess, mental health repercussions to that. She was in local subsidized housing with CMHA at the time and a client of CMHA locally. When I got the call from the hospital, I happened to have a bed available, which is not very often, but I did. And I asked them to put an application into the CHO program because it was a CHO bed. And the nice thing about CHO is residents are allowed to keep $500 a month for their own spending, which is quite different to what we've done through DOM and things like that. I took the resident just because I felt it would probably be approved. The CMHA is involved with the lady already. They've denied her to go back to her CMHA-funded apartment because they didn't feel she'd be able to function properly there. So I took the woman. It took 9 weeks for the Elgin CMHA to approve that transfer and to fund her. And there was no need to. I already had an empty bed. They had the budget. I was funded for one of those months already because a person left. And they took 9 weeks just because they could. And they wanted to teach me a lesson for taking somebody without their approval up front. And, you know, my approach to it is housing first is how you deal with challenges, and then you deal with the picking them up and building their lives after that. And this is just an example of the kind of challenges I'm facing with the CHO program. A couple of weeks ago, one of my CHO residents passed away. Elgin had already notified me they planned to take one of the beds in this community and relocate it to Elgin because they were losing a few beds in Elgin and they thought it should be shared by our community. Now here's a difference here. Elgin has 133 CHO beds. They have a population of 90,000. Our two counties together have a population of 110,000. We now have 12 CHO beds. There's a huge difference. I'll give you an example. I had 2 beds. One was a CHO bed, and I had a DOM resident move at the end of the DOM program. We had to move him out because he had assaulted one of the ladies in the home. Where was I going? So we lost 2 residents. I brought in 2 people now, but I've lost the CHO bed because they're moving it to Elgin. Now that I've lost it, they're moving it. We had hoped that we could keep 13 people in the home. The local CMHAs finally agreed to take over running it. If we kept them till they took over, we wouldn't have lost the funding. But because he died while they're still in charge, they took the bed. And that's a shame because during that time period, I've turned down 7 people, calls from hospitals, the local CMHA crisis bed program, the ACT team. Those sort of groups are calling to place people with us, and we don't have the beds for them. And nor do we have funding now for a couple of them. So that's an example of what's happening with CHO. I'm going to be very happy when the program gets relocated to our local CMHA because I'm confident I'll be able to work with them in a positive way. We worked with them very well over the years. And a lot of challenges that are coming up with the Elgin organization are resulting in all the homeowners in there have met with the Minister of Health. She's referred them to the head of policy, and they're working towards maybe terminating the CMHA involvement in the program and finding a more efficient way to run it. Here, one of the challenges in losing the beds is they need money for workers. Under HSC, All the homes in southwestern Ontario were administered by 4 workers, or were serviced by 4 workers. This new program now has 50 support workers, and money is leaving for beds that are needed, and now going to workers that are now doing other things besides work in our homes because they don't have enough to do in our homes. And so that's part of what's going on with the organization.
1 minute left.
All right, so bottom line, I want to talk to you about the DOM program. The funding is ended for that. I'm still funded for the people that are still there. The county's still paying for the 4 residents of the 5 that I had. I understand that there's going to be a request for proposals coming up because they're going through a modernization of the social housing program. And I'm just advocating, I guess, to continue supporting beds in our home. We are the only home providing the kind of service we are in the 2 counties. It's an important service. The cost, I'll be putting a proposal in maybe for 6 beds instead of 5. The cost is approximately $11,500 per year per bed to subsidize those, because we also take some rent from their ODSP, that type of thing. And I'd like some consideration to be given to allowing the residents through the county that are supported to keep a little extra money for personal needs, because it's a challenge on $150 to buy your clothes, go down and have your coffee. For a lot of them smoke, and smoking is a challenge for them to quit because the medications they're on tweak the part of the brain that make you like to smoke. And it's very hard for them to quit. We've had many try and fail. And so I'm requesting continued support from the county for the home and its beds. It's been a pleasure working in this community with the people. Developed a lot of networks here, and I think we provide an important service to the community. And I'm hoping Toby's working with me, Toby Barrett, now on this one lost bed. He's going to try and get it back for us. And Mike, the head of the local CMHA, says, well, we're going to work with Toby and we're going to go after some of those beds in Elgin because we could use at least another 2 homes in this area. Over the 11 years, I could have filled 2 other homes with the calls we get, legitimately with people who need the service in this area. So that's my presentation. If there are any questions?
Okay, moving on to any questions of committee. Councillor Columbus.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Norm, thank you for your deputation and for providing a comfortable home for your residents. Just a couple questions here.
Yes.
Do you employ personnel at
Yes.
your operation?
Yeah, I should have mentioned that. I have, my sister and I both work there. I have a local manager. She's been in the home for 20 years. And we have 2 other staff that are local people that work in the home. So we're 24-hour staffed. That's an important part of the service. It's necessary in that home. And so we do employ lots of local people.
And secondly, if they didn't go to your home and you said there's like a waiting list, where do these people in need go?
Often they wind up in rooming houses, back in the hospitals. Sometimes they wind up in jails, that sort of thing. The one thing I'm pleased about, none of my residents have wound up in a jail. We've been able to keep their lives pretty well on track. So that's what happens. It becomes a revolving door for those people in and out of hospitals, and that's expensive because it's $1,000 a day for a hospital bed. It's $50 a day roughly for my beds. It's a lot cheaper.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
Yes. Councillor Hoffman.
Thank you,
You're on.
Councillor Van Geysen. It's Van Geysen. What did I just do? I'm looking at you and looking there. Okay, I have a few questions.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay, so most of the individuals you said have a dual diagnosis, correct?
About, out of our 18, maybe 6 or 7
6
have
or
dual
7,
diagnosis,
okay.
yes.
Now, CCAC going in, some of my questions that I had written previously, you answered during,
Okay.
so I just want to.
Yes.
Okay, so your cost per day for a resident. So if I was requiring support and I'm coming to stay at Simcoe Residential Home, how much would it cost?
Well, with the program support we've had, it averages between $1,650 and $1,700 a month
A month?
to have the 24-hour care with staffing and that type of thing.
Okay,
The residents contribute Most of them are on ODSP, and so they're contributing about $747 or $8 a month now to the rent.
Okay, so it's costing you approximately $700 a month per resident, and the resident is paying approximately
Well, the resident's paying $747
Okay.
per month. If they make, I have one resident just moved in who's got a $2,800 a month pension, so they pay full rent.
Okay,
Okay.
so sliding scale.
Yes.
Okay,
But with the supports from the county or from the province, the rent averages between $1,650 total to $1,700 a month, depending on the number of days in the month.
okay. Now, the qualifications of the staff that are currently employed at Simcoe Residential are PSW, DSWs, nurses?
My sister has PSW training, and she has probably 25 years' experience in working with adults with mental health and developmental challenges.
Okay, and the other staff?
Missy is primarily, my manager is primarily experienced. She's 20 years in that home, and she's wonderful and knows how to work with the residents, and she knows when they're pushing her button and when not to push theirs. Yeah.
Okay. Now, a question, I noticed that it's, that you mentioned here that take several residents on passport-funded outings. What % of their passport funding do you access? Like, what is?
I have residents whose passport funding is administered by Community Living. They administer all of that.
Okay, so it's administered through Community Living.
And they provide the workers that take them out. But I also have currently two and about to get a third resident that we administer their passport for them because they requested that. And so we take those residents out on outings to all sorts of activities.
Okay. So,
And what I do with that, when I can take residents out in a funded trip, I usually fill the car up with other residents that aren't funded, and I buy their meals and I do all that kind of stuff so they get an outing too.
okay, so in regards to the funding, though, I guess what I'm unclear as with the passport piece in terms of available dollars for the residents is that when you're administering their passport, is there, your administration fee is 10%?
I don't charge any admin fee.
There's no admin fee?
No.
Okay. And in terms of utilizing their funding, do you pay the staff a different hourly rate when you're going on an event like that?
It's usually myself or my sister taking them out. The program pays us a minimum wage for doing that. I use that money to buy everybody meals and things like that. I'm not doing it to make money off the program.
No, I'm just trying to figure out a way that there might be more available funding because I'm familiar with the passport funding. And my last question is, you receive referrals from NACL?
Usually not from NACL.
No. Okay.
No.
Class?
No.
No. The APSW program out of Haldeman Norfolk Reach?
We've had, they are involved with some of my residents, yes.
Okay. All right.
But in terms of referrals, normally the referrals are coming from Brantford General Hospital, St. Joe's, CMHA Crisis Bed,
Right.
the ACT team, that type of thing.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Any others? If not, can I have a motion for the deputation? Mayor Chop, Mr. Taylor, all those in favor? That is carried. Moving on.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes?
just wonder, could we get a response from Ms. Van Dyke on this issue and how we're going to handle it?
I guess we can do that. Yes? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Councillor Columbus. The Dom Hostel program used to receive dedicated funding, and that was one of the funding streams that was rolled into the Community Homelessness Prevention Initiative and was changed to the service category of housing with related supports. When that happened in 2014, the Dom hostels were all grandfathered into the program, but there was a commitment to review all of the programs that were grandfathered to make sure that they still fit within the program guidelines of the Community Homelessness Prevention Initiative. The Dom hostels are a traditional group home program. They are more custodial in nature, where people have a higher level of care around their personal care, their finances, their medications, their meals, so on and so forth. When we did a program review of all of our homelessness prevention initiative funded programs, all of our domiciliary hostel providers participated in that review. And everyone was notified afterwards that the recommendation coming out of the review was that we continue to support the residents that were in the program, but that as beds became available, that we didn't fill them, so that we had a pot of money within the Housing with Related Supports envelope that we could do a request for proposals to see if we could get a wider range of housing with related supports for people who need supports. Because as Mr. Sharp has said, some people need more intensive support. We also have a lot of people in our community that need housing with support, but maybe not 24 hours a day. And that's a gap that we have right now. The other thing that is important to note is that this program has never been through a procurement. So as we are doing program reviews and as we are looking at all of our service contracts, we are looking at our legacy programs and going through procurements as we can, so that we can make sure that we've been through the appropriate request for proposal process. We have been notified of our Community Homelessness Prevention Initiative allocation for this year. There is a report that is going to the next Health and Social Services Advisory Committee, and then it will come to this council. Once the approval is given for the allocation, then we will commence the request for proposal for the Housing with Related Supports. And at this point in time, staff are recommending for this coming year a planned allocation of $138,000 for the Housing with Related Supports envelope. All of our domiciliary hostel providers were given notice in writing with their service contracts for the fiscal year of April 1st, 2018 to March 31st, 2019, so the fiscal year that just ended. When we renewed those contracts last year, we let the providers know that as their beds became vacant, that we wouldn't be filling them.
Thank you for those details.
Further, moving on. Lena Holstein coming next. Next we have Ms. Holstein. I can see you have 2 deputations, so what I'm going to ask is that you present both matters one after the other, and committee hold their questions to the very end. We have a lot of matters to address today, so I'm going to give you 15 minutes in total, unless there is objections from the committee. Any objections
Okay,
to 15?
okay.
Okay. You're ready? Go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lena Holstein, and I want to say hello to everyone that's here. I'm not familiar with all your faces, but I've got some strong points to talk about today. First of all, I have a petition. This is for Mechanic Street West, and it only goes from Main Street, which is where the bridge is, like that's Main Street, down to St. James Street, which is where the next bridge is. There's a large ramp, and it seems that it's been magnified more since they fixed this road, which was about 4 years ago. So I'm going to start here and talk about my concerns and the concerns of everybody that signed the petition. There's 22 people who signed the petition. Everybody should have a copy. Petition for changes to be made from Main Street to St. James Street, which is the bridge, on Mechanic Street West. There are too many drivers speeding down Mechanic Street West That's where the slope is, and the opposite way would be Deer Park Road. Okay? So Mechanic Street West needs 2 speed bumps from Main Street to St. James Street on Mechanic Street. 100% of the residents that were available signed the petition and want changes. These residents are only from Main Street to St. James Street on Mechanic Street West. We didn't go any further. Seeing these are the ones who are being affected. We have also an elderly woman who lives close to the corner of Main Street and Mechanic Street West that was hit by a driver, and her address would be 2 Mechanic Street West, and it's an apartment. Okay, so it's okay. So 85% of the people living on Mechanic Street West are elderly and pensioners that move a little slower and not as alert like one that is young. We also have a playground on the corner of Main Street, which that's where the Main Street is, where that bridge is, and Mechanic Street West. The children and parents enjoy the facility year-round. Thank you. Main Street and Mechanic Street West are quite busy during the day, and we have an additional street, which is called Old Main Street North, which runs along the west side of the bridge on Main Street. So you have 5 different streets, like you have 4 streets, but you have 5 stop signs if they have, because that's what we're requesting here. Because I'll tell you why now. So, anyways, you would need 5 stop signs to slow down the traffic on that corner, which would be Main Street and Mechanic Street West. This small street, Old Main Street North, runs alongside the Waterford Bridge down, and at least 75% of the drivers turn right or left from Old Main Street North onto Main Street. Have a problem because Mechanic Street West drivers turning right onto Main Street do not notice the car waiting to turn left or right onto Main Street from Old Main Street North. Once the 5 stop signs are in place, a sign should be placed above the stop sign on Mechanic Street West turning right, reminding drivers that there is a small street to their left, which is Old Main Street North. It's very dangerous. I mean very dangerous. You basically are pulling onto Main Street from Old Main Street North at your own risk. All you need is a 5-way stop. The 5-way stop signs would slow the traffic not only on Mechanic Street West, but also the ramp on the main bridge traveling south going towards Alice Street, which is your old downtown, which when drivers are driving too fast on Main Street over the bridge, they do not give a chance for the driver waiting at the stop sign on Alice Street to turn left to go onto the bridge. This will avoid an accident and give some time for the driver to make a left onto Main Street from Alice Street. The speed limit should be reduced to 40 kilometers from Main Street to St. James Street on Mechanic Street West. We need a sign asking drivers to slow down to the speed limit and pay attention at the corner of Mechanic Street West, close to Main Street. The road on Mechanic Street West is sloped, and drivers use it as a ramp to speeds of up to 80 kilometers an hour, day and night, and even screeching their tires as if they are at a racetrack. This is dangerous to an animal, a child, and an elderly person. Waterford being the 3rd largest community in Norfolk and growing, should have at least 2 OPP police, 24 hours a day. Waterford is not the wild, wild west. We also need 1 or 2 cameras on Mechanic Street West, strictly for the speeders and racers. This is an outcry from these petitioners for you to do the right thing and make Mechanic Street West safe. I just want to add that the noise levels are rising from noisy vehicles like trophy trucks, performance trucks, and rally cars that are raging through Waterford. These vehicles have illegal mufflers, loud idling, speeding, and screeching tires. Waterford is a retirement town, but does not feel like that. And that is my first deputation. Is there any questions?
Let's put your second one, and then we'll ask you, the council will ask questions then, if that's okay.
No, it's not okay, because they're 2 different things. I'd prefer to answer quickly these questions and
Go
move
ahead.
on to the next.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Councillor Geisens. I don't necessarily have a question, but I do have a couple statements, if that's okay?
Well, go ahead.
Okay. Hi, Lena.
Hello, Ken.
I just wanted to update everyone that Lena and I had spoken, and last week, Sean Lloyd from Public Works Department went out and visited the area and spoke with Lena, and there will be some further discussions in regards to that department. And I contacted the OPP and spoke with, left an email for them. I received information back that they would be looking into the speeding aspect. And today, I can't share all of the information in this email, but they have already done some observations, and they have replied back that they will be doing some further action. So the OPP piece is in place. They have already done some work. There's more to come, and I will be able to have some further discussion. We can have some further discussion with the Public Works Department in regards to discussing the slopes and things like that. So there has been some action taken on these deputation items.
Okay. Is there someone else?
Councilor Columbus.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Holstein, yes, I was going to mention some of the things that Councillor Huffman mentioned. I'm on the Police Services Board, and we do have speeding issues, and our communities are growing, and there's more drivers, and they got some bad habits out there. But I just wanted to mention that if you could give me your presentation, I'd gladly hand it over to the OPP, what you've read out to us.
Can I say something? Everybody in this room is supposed to have a copy right now. I can leave you mine. I could leave you mine when I leave.
I didn't get a copy in my notes here. I just got.
But I could hear. How about he can have mine?
Okay, here it is, I guess.
Okay, everybody's supposed to have.
Handed out today. Okay, great. So I'll
Okay.
pass this on to the OPP. Okay.
Okay.
And the other thing I want to mention was that we had a Police Services Board meeting today, a special one. And at budget time last year, we actually did not allow the speed traffic signs to go ahead, the speed watch signs. But today we passed a motion that's coming to council. The importance about bringing that speed watch program back and putting it back into the budget to combat some of these speeding issues across the county. Because they're in every community. Okay? So I just wanted to pass that on. I'd like to ask Mr. Godby if she mentioned speed bumps. Is that permittable on one of our county roads or not?
Through the chair to Councillor Columbus, it's not something that we get a lot into without actually doing some of the required traffic studies to determine the merits of it all. It's very situational and location specific, but I have made some notes here based on the deputation, and we'll have some discussions with our engineering group about this deputation and this particular intersection.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Thank you, Councillor Geisens. I just want to add one more point, is that Mechanic Street, as I'm sure you're probably aware, it gets pretty busy in the summer months for sure, with Waterford North there, and we've with the ponds and fishing, and there is a lot of traffic on those roads. So thank you.
Anyway, I didn't use up my 10 minutes. I just want to say something here. We also need 5 stops. It slows down the traffic, as I said, going across the bridge and down the slope. And there's a deer park there, and there's also a playground, which is very important. That would slow things right down, especially on Alice Street when people have to go turn left onto Main Street. Very dangerous at times when it's busy, because some people are, like I said, use the bridge like as if it's a rent. Okay, so is there any other questions? And before I leave today, I need the names of everybody involved here to see what we can do, because I have to answer the petitioners. So I need some information just on your names and who I can contact, because I want all this to go through. This is a lot of effort on all our parts. Okay, so I'm ready when you are.
Anything further?
No?
Okay. What do we do about the names?
Through you, Chair. So all the councillors' information is available on the website as is staff. So I guess we just would proceed to go to the second deputation.
She's not going to go to the second deputation. She's covered both.
We covered both? Okay. So if we could...
I thought you didn't want to, my understanding was, but maybe...
No, I wanted... No, can I speak?
Go ahead.
Okay, what I was saying is, let me finish the one deputation, get all the answers, because we have the police department here, we have different people, because the second one's different, so I want to do the deputation now.
Okay.
Can only do one at a time.
We will
to answer
receive this one
questions.
as a reputation for the council would do that for now. All those in favor? Okay, now we'll go to your second one.
Okay, so concerns and changes that should be addressed in Waterford, Ontario. Waterford, number 1, Waterford Downtown Bridge along the west side, grass and weeds have never been cut, never. And it grows as high to 3 to 4 feet, which you can see them even when you're on that little bridge there in Waterford. If the township cannot take care of the grass, then cut it down completely and plant crown fetch, because there's no maintenance and no erosion control. And they tell me, I've asked them many a times, the different people that are involved with this to do with the municipality, they tell me it's too steep. But you can't grow grass like this. This is a problem with the Weed Control Act. Okay, but it's not, but nobody's above the law. Too steep to cut existing grass and weeds. First, pick up all the debris and branches. Then the weeds should be sprayed naturally with a mixture of 1 gallon of white vinegar, 1 cup of Epsom salts, and 1 tablespoon of Dawn for dishes during the full sun. Mix well and apply with a small hand sprayer. Weeds will appear dead within 24 hours. Cut grass and weeds to the ground and seed heavily with Crown Fetch. Please look up how much Crown Fetch you need and how to apply it properly. Weed Control Act. This is a concern. Laws are made not to be broken. Please replace the garbage for papers and advertising at the post office. If you are paid for advertising, obviously the post office is paid to be advertised, then it's your job to allow people who do not want it, the advertisement, to have a place to put it. It is like selling hot dogs, and you obviously have waste when you are done. Same thing here. If you are making a profit from advertising, then you should be supplying the garbage for papers and advertising for recycling, not people throwing it on the streets and getting upset. They had it forever and ever, but now it was taken away about a year ago. That was number 2. Number 3 is every workday someone should be checking for Clean Yard Act, because for more than one reason, but it seems that no one has the time to do it. There's no departments that have time to check for the Clean Yard Act that's in place. That's very important. You expect the taxpayers to squeal on their neighbors, and sooner or later it gets out who squealed and makes for a bad neighbor. This is not our responsibility as a community, as you need to believe. This is your responsibility through our tax money. You have a new subdivision going in on Main Street North in Waterford. Already there has been complaints on people abusing the Clean Yard Act. Write them up. Give the abuser one chance. And if the abuser does not act, then issue a fine and put the name in the newspaper. Enough is enough. Laws are made not to be broken. And worst of all, it devaluates everyone's property around them. The different departments could be fire department, bylaw, police department, etc. Or allow the public to call into a phone number anonymously. So if you don't want to be concerned about that everybody's too busy around here to do their jobs, then do it anonymously. But don't expect people to go to your to go to the bylaw office, write it all up, and then you act when you have time, and then the names are written down, and sooner or later it makes for bad neighbors. This one is very important, and everybody should be acting on this. Number 4, how do we act? How do the people get rid of anything we do not want? Well, how about involving all of Waterford residents, all of Norfolk, who cares, to commit to a 2-day sale at the Waterford High School football field where the antique cars are displayed for Pumpkin Fest. Saturday, Sunday, someone's junk is someone else's treasure. This could be done by economics and development. Less trash on the curb and in your yards. That's number 4. Number 5, abandoned vehicles that sit without being driven for periods of time that are left in the most unusual areas, many times on a business lot or a boulevard, which even a fancy coal bar across the steering wheel. Just so precious. Number 6, I was driving by Alice Street, and one of the businesses had all kinds of junk in front of their store. That looks terrible, and it's still there today. Only in Waterford, the wild, wild west. We need 2 OPP officers in Waterford every day, 24 hours a day. Waterford has fallen behind with all that I mentioned in my deputation. Number 8, 12 years ago, I called up the Township Hall in Simcoe and requested 2 strong lights to be placed under the Waterford downtown bridge. There's a lot of activity on Friday and Saturday at night. People screaming, laughing, fighting, cursing, partying, etc. No one did anything about it. The person at the Township Hall only was concerned with what my name, and at the time, why would my name be important? Because sooner or later it gets back to the accused. I even said it would be better for the OPP to shine a flashlight to see what was going on, so it would not be dangerous, only once the 2 strong lights were in place. Nope, nobody cares. Well, I care. Behind the Waterford liquor store alley, there are 4 or 5 old big boats. Are you kidding me? Again, the Clean Yard Act. You need to be proactive because the people are violating it, which is the laws. Laws are broken left, right, and center. It's not good enough that someone would have to do your job or finding the violators and then violators knowing who it was that squealed. And that's number 8. Number 9 is we have 3 danger signs in place of putting in a proper railing so no one will fall into the water under the Waterford Bridge. There's no excuse that the grass is hardly cut in that area also because it is flat there. It should not be a problem. It's maybe time for the township to know what the schedule is so nothing is forgotten. Furthermore, there is only one exit on Old Main Street North. So people should be able to use the old Main Street North Bridge that goes to Alice Street behind the appliance store. This would be a fire code act. So basically, they cut it off going to Alice Street from that small street that's beside the bridge in Waterford because they don't want to put a railing and they hang out there anyway.
You have 1 minute left. Thank you.
Well, I'm done almost. Thank you. There's way too many issues for now, and I can address other issues at a different time. Thank you so much, Lena Holstein. Okay.
Councillor Hoffman?
Thank you, Councillor Geisens. Thank you, Lena, for that second deputation.
Thank you.
I can speak to a couple of these issues. I hadn't seen them all written down, but I can let you know that number 6, in terms of the Alice Street business, that is in the process, of being dealt with. It's also in the process of being dealt with a parking space that's being utilized basically 8 hours a day in front of that same business. I do concur, living in Waterford, that we probably do need to, there are a few places that the Clean Yard Act would be definitely a place to go. Now, in terms of the lighting and the bridge, actually, I believe Mayor Chop, you would know which one we're talking about. Remember when we went to check out that dam? So you're correct. We probably do need to have railings there. I think that's something that we can talk about.
200 years.
Pardon?
It feels like it's been almost 200 years.
Oh, well, maybe
maybe
it probably has. What else? In terms of the post office, again, being a resident of Waterford, I do understand that, but unfortunately that would be a Canada Post issue, which is a federal issue. We can't do anything about that one. And I like your idea of the big yard sale. Unfortunately, I think that would be something that we could deal with through Pumpkin Fest. Maybe going, yeah.
What? Let her finish, please.
Yeah.
It's hers.
Yeah, so that would be something that maybe we can look at in terms of some discussion with the Pumpkin Fest committee. But I did want to let you know that several of these items are in the process of being dealt with. And I'm hoping to have some information back within the next week or two. So again, thank you very much. Thank you for being such a steward of Waterford and really, being a part of your community and bringing forth these issues.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Lena.
Any other questions? If not, I have a motion from the council to see for a deputation. Go ahead. All those in favor? It is, thank you very much for coming. Sorry? Oh, I'm sorry. Councillor Van Passen and Councillor Hoffman. Okay, thank you very much. Moving on. Next, I guess we have Dusty Zamanek, Chair, Norfolk County Agriculture Advisory Board, Re-Economic Development Strategy. Okay. So Michelle Hofer, you're coming with him as well? Okay. Doing it together?
Hi, yeah, we decided to do it together since we're going to be saying very similar things and in order to save a little bit of time. So, yeah, we just kind of wanted to, we're both here representing our respective committees that we're on. I'm on the Tourism and Economic Development Board as the chair, and
I'm the chair of the Agriculture Advisory Board.
so first off, thanks for having us, Council and Mayor Chop. I just wanted to, from the Tourism and Economic Development Board, I was asked to come and just show our support for the economic strategy review. We were really happy with the community involvement, and we just really wanted to kind of say how appreciative we were of how much the county did involve the community through the roundtable discussions, which were very well attended and very engaged, and through kind of discussions with us at basically all stages of the economic strategy review with the Tourism and Economic Development Board, where kind of a wide array of business owners and citizens in Norfolk County. So it was really, it was great to see the focus on community involvement with the, also with the survey, which had a great response and really great input into the presentation that Clark is likely going to be making soon. So yeah, we just basically wanted to say all of the points we really are strongly supportive of the direction that we're seeing the economic development strategy go in Norfolk County to improve the lives of the community and grow our community. And I think from my end, that's it. Yeah, thanks very much to Clark and his team for such hard work on the project, both from keeping it in-house, which we really liked seeing, instead of hiring a consultant, both for cost saving, but also for just having a direct contact with the community and the county, which I think is really important and was a really good exercise for people to feel like their voices were heard more directly. So from TDAB, we are very supportive of it and very thankful for the great results that we think were shown in the strategy review. And go ahead.
Okay, perfect. Michelle's a better speaker than I am, so I had to write my thoughts down. Proud to stand here as the chair of the Agriculture Advisory Board, as well as the Norfolk County Agriculture in general, as a farmer myself. I know many of you, all of you, we get to know each other even closer, as I thank Mr. Clark Hoskin for setting up an upcoming Agriculture Advisory and Industry Primer for me to go into further detail of agriculture. I want to publicly state my support on behalf of the AAB of the new economic development strategy, as well as continued support for these activities on a routine basis, such as 5 years, for example. Both myself and Mrs. Clofer run the steering committee for this project, among other local business owners, operators, as well as county staff and high school representatives. This is reference to other council associations I sit on and not the one that here today, but agriculture has been known to take and get the back seat in politicians' minds, but I respect many of the points of this strategy being presented here today that has many points for continued prosperity and support of Norfolk producers, food processors, tech-related agriculture, culinary and sustainable tourism, and as well as honest on-farm diversified use. This point is particular to agriculture, as well as many industries, as we face a continual brain drain of youth. Embracing agricultural and culinary entrepreneurship with not only support verbally, but also legally, means further creation of value-add opportunities, and with that comes greater attractiveness for youth to stay or return to Norfolk and explore these new opportunities or have their dreams supported by the local government. I love a good discussion about bunkhouses, especially in our county. The continued support of council up the chain of communication to the province about exploring housing alternatives or allowable uses for employees is highlighted in the strategy as well. I want to thank our interim CAO for coming to our wrap-up meeting of the steering committee, the volunteers, Clark's office for the creation and collection of data, the councilors for attending the industry and area-specific meetings, and all those who responded to the surveys. As a resident and committee member, knowing that our county and council are making the time and effort to create these conduits of communication and check-ins are positive exercises, and in turn maintain the motivation that we are ready to adapt and stay modern in the direction and pioneer where we can. Respectfully, Dusty Zamanek.
That's the end?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions of the committee? None? May I have a motion to receive the deputation? Okay. All those in favor? That is carried. Hoffman and Martin. Moving on, I guess we have staff report DCS 1948, Re-Economic Development Strategic Final Report. Who's got that one?
That's me, Mr. Chair. I'm just checking for the remote on the thing. Okay, thank you, Thank you, Mr. Chair and Mayor and Council, for this opportunity to provide you an update on the final report of the Economic Development Strategy. And I just wanted to say, first of all, Ms. Klopfer and Mr. Zamenhof are great examples of the future of our business community in Norfolk County. And I think just by what their ability to communicate and get involved in the community definitely is helpful and bodes well for our economy. So in terms of the Norfolk Economic Development Strategy, I've got a quick summary presentation, which I'll try to get through quickly because I know you're busy. But basically, the overall background on the report is summarized in the document as well as in the staff report. We did do 2 strategies in the past, in 2002 and 2011. The terms of reference for this document was approved just over a year ago, and we had 12 months of consultation and review, over 2,000 participants in 5 surveys, as well as 400 plus attendees in 11 roundtables and discussions. As our deputations mentioned, the process was overseen by community volunteers and staff, and we did save some money by doing it in-house. The process and timeline is outlined in the report as well, and basically we had consultations back last summer and fall. We came up with some draft strategic directions in the winter of this year, and there was a survey that went out that helped us set those priorities. I did make a presentation to this council back in February when you saw some of the interim recommendations, and actually the order of them all changed because based on public input, some of them appear more higher in the rank than others. And I just want to mention too that apart from Dusty and Michelle, we did have Brett Schuyler, Gail Bowe, Nick Kokoros, and Olivia Culver, who were also members of our project oversight team. Just in terms of some overview on community consultations in terms of strengths and issues, it's no surprise to council that the number 1 strengths of the economy viewed by the public were agriculture and tourism, entrepreneurial spirit, and the quality of place and life of Norfolk County. I think everyone agrees those are great strengths. However, on the high priority issues side, the importance of having a welcoming business environment, revitalizing our downtowns, and job creation were very important issues overall through the consultations. We also used some values based on United Nations development goals and asked the community what their core values were, so it helped us guide our principles on the strategy. And decent work and economic growth, as well as safe and well-governed communities, topped the list across the county, among other values. In terms of future readiness, we had the opportunity to reach out to people of Norfolk County to get their ideas on how ready we are for the future. And I think people are generally positive about it and ready to move on some sophisticated issues and approaches that we need to put into place. I think integrating what it means in terms of community economic development and all that we do is very important moving forward. And I certainly feel very happy and proud to work with the team of staff in all the various divisions who definitely have a very positive attitude about economic development. So I did mention earlier the interim report and the priority survey that helped us to shape the final report, which is before you. In terms of the structure of the strategy recommendations, there are 3 strategic directions. They're kind of like imperatives that are really key to the strategy. And then under each one of those strategic directions are several focus areas. And then under each focus area, there are a series of recommendations. And of course, there are 61 recommendations in the report, and by all means, they aren't all priorities. We're going to have to set those priorities, but also not all of them we can do ourselves. So we'll have to reach out and collaborate with others. So the 3 strategic directions for the strategy are helping entrepreneurs to expand wealth and prosperity. That was kind of voted the number 1 priority of our participants in our final priorities poll. The second one was harness community energy to improve public spaces. And then thirdly, welcome youth and newcomers to grow the population and workforce. So those are our 3 kind of strategic directions. Under helping entrepreneurs, it was very key to our participants that we need to improve our municipal regulations, processes, and communication. And we also need to support existing growth businesses and attract emerging industries. And in the report, you'll see a number of recommendations under each of those areas. I won't go into all of them specifically, but a couple of them are, boost customer service, for example, and assist businesses through regular visitations, which help us to be prepared when they do come with their plans. The second strategic direction, harness community energy. The focus areas there are support our downtowns as attractive places to visit and invest, followed by improving relationships and communications, and then increasing participation by citizens in community projects. And some examples of recommendations under the harness community energy area would be encouraging property standards and beautification, as well as growing collaboration between business and government. And I think we're making strides on those, but we can always do better. I noticed we had a representative tonight from the Simcoe and District Chamber of Commerce who's in the room, and we've had some discussions and really want to help grow that collaboration wherever possible. And then the third strategic direction in the strategy is welcome youth and newcomers to help grow our population and our workforce. So some key focus areas in that one are connecting our workforce to job opportunities, connecting workers with housing and amenities, and attracting new residents. And those were key recommendations that are not only our citizens put forward, but our business community as well. And some of the, a couple examples of recommendations in that area would be to develop housing, affordable housing to youth and others, and consult major employers on labor shortages to try to deal with those issues. So those are the three strategic directions, and then probably a very important add-on aspect of our strategy is performance measurement. So performance measurement really is defined as what does success look like, because we want to be able to look at this down the road and see whether or not we've made any improvements. I've heard in this chamber the quote from Peter Drucker, you can't manage what you can't measure, and that's kind of what performance measures are all about. In the economic development profession, it's been an ongoing debate for years since I've been involved as to what performance measurement models are best to use. It's constantly back and forth depending on whether you're a big city or a mining community or an agricultural area. There's a lot of different models out there. And in our previous strategies, we've used kind of a monitoring report, sort of like a red, yellow, green grid that we've used as a monitoring report, and we can continue to do that moving forward. However, one affordable option we'd like to bring forward for consideration by council is a new ISO standard that's been recently developed, and it's the Sustainable Development of Communities Indicator for City Services and Quality of Life. And although the word city is used a lot, I mean, it's basically an ISO standard for municipalities. And currently communities like Welland, Shawinigan, Quebec, Surrey, BC, and other smaller communities are already enrolled in this program. It's relatively inexpensive, and it involves 100 indicators that measure a municipality's performance comparably around the world. So it's a really cool performance measure that I think would be helpful in our case. The good thing about it is it's globally standardized. It's a trusted, independent, third-party verified kind of tool, so it isn't me telling you that we've performed, but it's a world organization saying so. So I think it's a good prerequisite for sound economic investment and smart strategic planning, and it's worth considering. In terms of some next steps and priorities for the strategy, we took a dive into this in terms of trying to figure out what to focus on next. And I think stabilizing funding to retain and expand business and attraction in our business visits and that type of thing is very important. So making sure that our department itself is has the resources it needs, I think, is an important next step. Secondly, a new kind of all Norfolk tourism marketing model, I think, would be a good priority. This would be aimed at increasing community pride, resident attraction and workforce development, and collaborating with the private sector, perhaps securing some new revenue sources for that. And then other next steps could be around engaging citizen volunteers in some downtown revitalization projects, as well as some meaningful discussions that we could hold in roundtables with our community. And there is a research document that I prepared called Ideas for Future Solutions that's also included in your package, which has a kind of roundup of ideas on things we could do for next steps.
Mark, do you have much more to go? I'll ask for some addition. You have your 10 minutes. If
Oh.
council will give you more.
No,
is
I
there
can-
a councillor who will put something on the another 5 minutes or whatever. How much are you going to need?
I'm just basically, I'm finished, so I can
You
stop
sure?
now.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. We'll move on then. Any questions of the committee? Councillor Columbus.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Clark, I thought your department is has one vacancy. Has it still? And if there is a vacancy, what have you cut? And what are you not doing that you traditionally would have been doing?
Through the chair to Councillor Columbus, currently we have a vacant position called the Economic Development Officer, previously held by Jerry Succarina, who passed away a year or so ago. And we do have a customer service representative helping us at the moment to kind of continue to do some of our initiatives. So we have the number of people in place. I think the union has been very cooperative in letting us extend that CSR position for a couple of contracts. However, they have kind of put a sunset on that, so we're hoping that in September we can move forward to fill that position, unless there is some other structure that we go with or some other recommendations we put in place.
Thank you.
Councillor Hoffman, sorry.
Thank you, Councillor Geisens. Hi, Clark. A couple questions. It was funny because all of a sudden I'm like, I feel like this was deja vu, but I was thinking back to when you did kind of the initial piece in February, so that's why I was so I know I made this point before, but I just want to do it again. And looking at the, the Delhi Roundtable, Port Dover, Port Rowan, Simcoe, Waterford, the Ag, and the Emerging Industries Roundtable, lots of great names and lots of great minds there. My point is that these are typically the people who are engaged already, right? So, and some of them are business owners, some are county employees, and some of them are kind of, members of community service groups. So they're already at the table, maybe another table, but they're at a table. So my recommendation, what I would really like to see moving forward when we're looking in particular to that youth piece, is that we're going to the people as opposed to having them come to us. I think we kind of briefly discussed that before. So that's my one feedback. I love the idea of when you were speaking about the initiating the downtown revitalization. Like, are you meaning where the county maybe gets behind some not? I guess it's separate from the BIA, separate from a chamber. Is that what you're thinking of?
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Huffman, it's kind of all of those things, and the strategic direction around harnessing community energy is really meant to be broad in the sense that if there's something that a BIA is going to do on its own and the county can support it or volunteers can support it, that's fantastic. If there's something that a community group steps up and says they want to do and the county can help or whatever, bring some connections even, just point people in the right direction. And sometimes it isn't about money, it's just about who to talk to, right? And other times it could be inspiring a group of volunteers who maybe don't even have a structure, but they want to do something. And what we're finding more and more is that people don't want to go to meetings and sit on committees, but they wouldn't mind coming out for a couple hours and helping clean up a back alley or something, right? So it's coming up with the ways to get people engaged into that process. So I think the strategy is meant to say to people, look, the county is here to help connect you and help you collaborate. Whatever that means. So we don't want to kind of make anyone think that they have to fit into some hierarchical structure. It's meant to be, if you think you can help, then let's get together and work together.
Thank you. And that's precisely what I'm getting at, because sometimes people are uncomfortable maybe joining, a service club or, those types of things where they just want to be kind of boots to the ground and get their hands dirty and do their thing. The other thing, when you were talking about the ISO piece with the standards and the 100 indicators, I was just wondering if you'd had any experience with the kind of the perception of complete communities, if you've ever had a chance to look into that a little bit. If I would recommend that. It's pretty helpful, and it's got some really cool information that you've been able to gather here, but also moving forward. But I guess the standards, the ISO standards, it makes me think a little bit of an accreditation kind of process, where it could, when they're doing rankings of different areas, if you meet so many indicators, you would be ranked higher. Correct? Is that kind of?
Basically.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mayor Chop?
I just have a question for our CAO, actually. So if we were to endorse these recommendations today, there's some of them that I think are fantastic, and there's some that I have a little bit of a concern with. But I'm just wondering how that ultimately fits in with our own strategic plan that council is going to start working on tomorrow. So if we endorse this document, I'm hoping that council still here is going to be able to set the priorities within the document.
Through you, Chair, to the Mayor. Yeah, we felt that we wanted to present the economic development strategy first, and then you're workshopping tomorrow and setting your strategic priorities, that you would consider these. So if you approve it in principle, you would consider all these recommendations to form your priorities that you're going to be doing over the next month.
So that doesn't mean that we're officially endorsing and going to act on all of these that are in the document?
That is correct.
Okay.
Councillor Michele?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's to Mr. Hoskins. Clark, it says that we are going to receive annual reports that measure the success of this strategy. You're giving the report today. Are we to assume that it will be sometime each June that we'll receive this report?
Through the chair to Councillor Michele, yes, in the past, normally I think the last strategy was approved in December, and normally we'd bring a report in March. So typically, yeah, I guess we would likely look at a similar timing moving forward.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
Mr. Hoskins, I must say I really love this report. It's very thorough. I really like the level of community engagement that was incorporated into it. However, I do have one, I'm going to call it a question, but it might be a criticism, is in the list of the community values survey that was done, and respondents were asked to rank order 10 items of value for a community. And maybe for council, I'm referring to page 23 of the report. Very nice list of a number of, community values, or I suppose things that we would like people to come to Norfolk County for, or to be proud of in Norfolk County. I couldn't help but notice the absence of the value of affordable housing in that list. We make mention of adequate housing for workers, but I think everyone in this room knows that we have a housing crisis, an affordable housing crisis in Norfolk County, and I'm just kind of curious as to why that would not be included as a valuable item for a community in a report like this.
Certainly, through the chair to Councillor Michele. Yeah, the 10 community values choices there were based on the 17 that you see in the previous pages there from the United Nations. And you're right, there isn't kind of a specific mention of housing, need for quality housing. I can't really explain why that was left out of there. I think, although in the process of completing the strategy report, I think the one thing that came out really clearly was that it is a lack. It is something that we need to address, and we did make sure that we got it into the final document. So, for what it's worth, I would say probably, perhaps a safe, well-governed communities and sustainable communities maybe, or infrastructure-related things, but I agree with you, there isn't a specific mention of housing, and it definitely warrants being there.
Thank you, Mr. Hoskins. Yes, I know I tried to rationalize some of these as well, yeah. And I really couldn't do it. Yeah. But I'm hoping that in future we can keep that in consideration. Thank you.
Councillor Martin?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Clark, I once again love that this report has been drilled down a little bit more. A lot of great things in here that I have heard through the community or dreamt of myself one day. Hosting industry, I want to build on that a little bit. The marine industry, that would be a great one to expand on in Norfolk County. The ag food showcase, I read that and I thought, why hadn't I thought of that one before? Brilliant. Off-season tourism, I really, really think that there's something there. There's something that business owners are begging for to be identified and drilled down a little bit more. Technology as it relates to parking, love that. Protocols for entrepreneurship, I think that that is something that could be so strong coming out of your department. Consistency, and it's the same set of rules that we can help everyone with and apply when we give guidance to everyone. Volunteer database, working for a not-for-profit agency. So there are so many great things on here that I loved. But a couple, and also in implementation, number 2, the all Norfolk model aimed increasing community pride, and I think that's something that's flown under the radar as well. We have a lot of focus on some of our big urban centers, and there's something to be said about really hitting home all of Norfolk and the differences that each community and hamlet can offer. But a question I have for you is in implementation priorities in number 1, stabilize funding for key municipal economic development. Can I interpret that to say, that's page 40 in our agenda if you're wondering, can I interpret that to say that your department is going to keep a keen eye for additional funding from upper tier level of government, or is that you wanting to come to the council, Norfolk County Council, and look for additional funding?
Well, through the chair to Councillor Martin, I'd say it's both. Yeah, but I think the key word is stabilize. So if there's opportunity to access funds from other levels of government or other areas, if you read some of the ideas that are in the appendix, you'll see some things in there. So definitely, I think we want to be able to come at budget time and be able to be open and discuss the options for our budget and make sure that we don't have kind of a precarious situation, because I think it's important that we've done a lot of good work over the last few years. I'd like to see it continue. I wouldn't want to see it kind of taper off.
Okay, and Mr. Chair, my second question, if we looked at the ISO system to monitor performance and success, if you didn't have that, has there been any conversation or dialogue about how, without something like that, how you would measure the success of this initiative?
Certainly, and in the past, what we've done, as I've mentioned, is an annual report that basically lays out each of the recommendations, and then you have kind of columns that say completed or challenged or ongoing or needs more resources or something like that. And we've basically given them different colors so that you can quickly go through and see there's a lot of green or there's a lot of red. And that's a quick way of sort of giving an annual monitoring report. And that's what we would likely do in the absence of something more sophisticated.
Okay, you just keep with the same programming. Okay, thank you very much. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
I just have one, actually. I'll be honest, the only one that really kind of jumps out at me is a little bit of a concern is the, and I've had a few people write me, is the municipal accommodation tax. Given how few accommodations we actually have in Norfolk County right now, I mean, I could see that potentially down the road, but my concern is just, again, setting those priorities in the right order. And I think the first priority is probably getting some more accommodations in Norfolk County as opposed to taxing the ones that we do have that are here.
Yeah, if I could, we do have our hotels and our B&Bs. We do have a growing Airbnb and vacation rental market. I'd say we're probably up around 3 dozen properties there now. There's other opportunities as well, so it doesn't necessarily have to be the traditional accommodation per se. The Municipal Act doesn't define what overnight tourist accommodation is, so theoretically the municipality could have a bit more leeway of what that means. But there was one stakeholder who runs a B&B who told me in a meeting that currently they pay the county $179 a year to be a part of the marketing partner program. And under a municipal accommodation tax, they would be able to provide about $750 in tax to a fund. So in that one example, you see a difference of the type of funding that could be made available. And generally, I mean, I don't want to jinx it, but generally the feedback I'm getting from some of the tourism industry is, yeah, if this is what we need to do to be competitive and be comparable to other communities, then let's think about it. So that's why it's in there as a for your consideration, basically, and we can always bring back more information. And if you decide you don't want to do it, that's fine. Or if you do, that's fine too.
So one, well, actually more than one. I've had a couple people that have approached me and sent emails that did pay the fee to be in the Norfolk County magazine, and then the fire department was sent to their Airbnb as a result of listing, and now they're being held to an even higher standard than a home standard in terms of a rental property. So I'm a little bit afraid that if we start going too far down this road of starting to implement a tax and regulating it too much, that I know we lost a number of Airbnbs this year because of this. And so how many more would we potentially lose now if this kind of triggers them being subject to additional regulations? And only because it's such a critical thing right now that we just don't have places for people to stay.
I agree 100%. The examples you bring up are real, and we're aware of them and not happy about them either. But that's unfortunately the world we live in, where we're the promotional arm of a regulatory body, right? So it can be frustrating, and I'm hopeful that we can figure out ways to make sure that these homeowners or businesses who want to create alternative accommodation can do it without having a ton of bricks come down on them. But it's something to work through for sure.
Thanks.
Councillor Van Passen.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Been following this right since day one, and actually read the old reports a few years ago too, and it's a lot of good information, but there's what they say, 61 recommendations. Maybe that's attacking on too broad a front. And I know when I was a kid, we got to look at the Eaton's catalog, but you only got to pick one thing. That sounds pretty old, doesn't it? If I asked you if we only had the resources to do 3 things, what should we focus on in the next 6 months?
Let me just pull the list out here. The strategy recommendations are basically listed in priority according to the survey. So we didn't take any kind of staff view on it and put our spin on it. This is basically, they're put in the order of the way the community wants to do it. So, but I would say that probably since helping entrepreneurs would be our #1 priority, then likely things like making sure that our policies and processes work properly, prioritizing our approvals for employment-related development, and boosting customer service are 3 internal things that if we just focused on them for the next year, that would get us a long way. And if I could pick one more, it would be continue to visit our businesses regularly. That's not expensive to do. It just requires, staff who are mature enough and know enough to be able to interact properly with their community.
What I heard was cut the red tape, cut the red tape, cut the red tape, and go ask them if enough red tape's been cut.
Well, that wasn't my wording, but...
Well, that's what I heard.
Councillor Ramett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you. Excellent report. Clark, thank you for the hard work that you've done along with your steering committee. My question is maybe less a question, more of a comment that I just want to point out to those members of the viewing public and also council that there is sort of a hidden report within this report, and it appears on page 75. It's the research report's ideas for future solutions, and that's what Councillor Van Passen was maybe alluding to about the plethora of different suggestions. This is sort of the brainstorming piece, I perceive it, out of the report of different ideas that we could pursue. And as Clark suggested, they're listed in priority order in terms of the survey respondents and what they deem to be the higher priority asks. So, to answer your question directly, Mr. Van Passen, food processing support, page 77, business incubators and investment platforms, overnight tourist accommodation were highlighted as the top 3 strategic priorities for business development, tourism, economic development in Norfolk County. So I'm interpreting those top 3 as maybe areas to focus on. If we were to get a laundry list, I think it was Warren Buffett that said, you get like 20 things you like to do, you write them down on a sheet of paper, you pick maybe 1, 2, or 3 things off that list, and you put that other list to the side, and well, you don't touch that list until you've made some headway on the areas you've laid a priority to. So that's maybe one way we could interpret this list, and we're going to have a good discussion tomorrow about strategic planning in Norfolk County, and we might want to think about the various recommendations and the ideas for future solutions, and we might want to cherry pick a few out that appeal to us as councillors or to us as a governing body. And I just kind of wanted to maybe put that out there to Clark, if I'm interpreting that last report correctly, or if there's anything you wanted to add to the comments that I've just made.
Certainly through the chair to Councillor Rabbits. Actually, the ones that are itemized in that research report aren't in any priority sequence. They're just randomly. It's the strategy recommendations that are prioritized. There isn't a priority sequence in these, just so you know, okay? Because we didn't want to kind of go there, because the public who got involved in this process didn't see this report. This is just sort of what came out. So just to kind of clarify that. So I don't want you to think that those are the most important ones. However, they are very important. I mean, all of them are very important. I would say, if I had the opportunity right now to say if there were a couple things that I wish we could do. One would be around incubators, and I know that we are talking about business incubators and how cannabis relates to that. So I think you might hear more about that shortly. And also, in terms of downtown revitalization, empty and vacant properties, I think, are a very important thing to deal with, and that we'll probably be back shortly on that as well. So those are 2 things that you'll hear more from us on.
Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Chair Geisens. Through you to Mr. Hoskins. Actually, my questions were going to be about the vacant property and empty storefront. Do we happen to have a month roughly that we're hoping to have the tour of the empty storefronts? Have we got that far? Or?
Through the chair to Councillor Taylor, Mr. Willie, Ted Willie is in the building. He's actually organizing that with the rest of our team, and Ted will have a date soon. Working with July 23rd. There Wonderful. You go. Hey,
happy to hear it.
Ask and you shall receive. And in terms of empty storefront protocols and vacant properties, Chris Garwood, our economic development supervisor, has just recently finished an inventory of vacant properties, and so we'll be talking more about that in the next little while.
And that's vacant property, as in vacant buildings and lots. It'd be both.
Through the chair, it could be old factories, it could be empty warehouses.
Okay. Yeah, perfect. And I'm very excited to see that there's the business network option. That's something that I heard quite extensively during the campaign, was just having some way for our chambers, BIAs, and boards of trade, and all the different agencies to actually discuss things. So I'm really excited to see that in here. Thank you.
And if I could just say through the chair, Linda Branderhorst from the Simcoe Chamber of Commerce, we had an excellent conversation the other day, and we're working with our Chambers of Commerce as well as our peers in Haldimand County to pull them together for a joint meeting in September. So that process is already starting, and we're really excited about that.
Okay, does anyone wish to move the staff recommendation or propose an alternative? Councillor Columbus.
I'll move the staff recommendation, Mr. Chair.
Okay, seconder? Councillor Michele. All those in favor? That is carried. We're going to go on to the presentation of Mr. Dennis Trevally, Chair, Norfolk County Police Services Board, Police Services Board update. Mr. Trevally, please present yourself. Bring yourself to the the podium, and you can start anytime you want. Address the committee.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and Your Worship, members of council, and most of the staff that I recognize here tonight. My presentation may take a little bit longer than 10 minutes.
That's okay. It's a
I
presentation.
sort of forewarned you with that. And so I beg your indulgence on this topic. We do have tonight our detachment commander, Inspector Joe Varga, to use the vernacular, your chief of police. And we were hoping some of the members from the board would be here, but given the announcement that it was 5 p.m., they may be a little bit late arriving if they arrive at all on time. I was appointed by council, and I attended my first meeting in April, where the members of the Police Services Board, bless their little hearts, nominated me and elected me as the chair. So I'm playing catch-up. You can be assured, however, that the acting chair for the period January to April and the existing board members provided excellent coverage between that period, and whatever support was needed was provided by Norfolk County. So what is the Police Services Board? The Police Services Board oversees the policing and is the interface between council and the police. It's established under Section 10 of the Police Services Act, and more specifically, Part 3 of that Act. And while the legislation to replace the Police Services Act has received royal assent, it has not been promulgated at this time. So we continue under the 1990 Police Services Act as amended. When proclaimed, the new legislation, probably January 2020, maybe 2021, because right now they're working on the regulations related to the legislation, our reference will become the Community Safety and Policing Act 2019, and more specifically for the PSB, Romans 4. There are other pieces of legislation that have been amended or enacted, but the two that I've referenced are the most important to the PSB. And that's the framework current and pending. Municipalities policing is overseen, as I mentioned, by the PSB, where the community chooses one of the following: to establish a municipal police force, to establish a joint police force with other municipalities, or contracts with the Ontario Provincial Police to receive the policing services. A Police Services Board is not a committee of council and is not subject to council's bylaws or policies, such as the Code of Conduct or the Conflict of Interest bylaw. However, we are covered, I assure you, by provincial legislation in all those areas. Specifically, the Police Services Act, Ontario Regulation 421 from 1997. All of our meeting dates, minutes, and past meetings and other information is posted on the Norfolk County website. The PSB contributes to the community safety and well-being by working with local citizens and organizations to ensure that the community receives the appropriate policing that it needs and deserves. And in Norfolk, we have community policing committees, which provide that community input and relationship. Board responsibilities. Police Services Board have the OPP as their police service. Having the OPP as their police service are responsible for the following things: establishing a local strategic plan and policies on the police services. A copy of this presentation, by the way, is with the clerk. You'll get it after I finished. I just didn't want your heads down reading while I'm talking. So establishing a strategic plan and policies on police services. Determining the objectives and priorities for police services in consultation with the detachment commander and his hierarchy. Participating in the selection of the detachment commander. Receiving regular reports from the detachment commander and monitoring his or her performance, and that is done annually. In Norfolk County, we have 5 members on the Police Services Board. 2 of them are appointed by the provincial government. Mr. David Murphy and Ms. Carol Greentree are those 2 representatives appointed by the previous government. And you have 2 representatives from council, currently Her Worship and Councillor Columbus, and one person appointed at large from the citizens of Norfolk, and that's me. Now, how did I get to be the chair of the Norfolk County Police Services Board? Well, as a private citizen, and just like any other Norfolk citizen, I filled out an application with my background and relevant experience and expertise. Council discussed the appointments in closed session, and I've been there, I know what you do, and as a result, at least 5 of you voted for me to be on this board. So a little bit of history. I was a frontline badge police officer with the Royal Canadian Air Force in Canada and in Germany. I enforced both the military law and the Criminal Code of Canada. As a senior executive in the Government of Canada, I was a badged peace officer, overseeing the operations of both an internal affairs division and a special investigations division for customs officers and tax auditors. Those organizations were involved in national and international investigations, and I can assure you we had a lot of cooperation and consultation with police forces at every level. In private life, I was a consultant to the provincial government and the federal government on strategic security policy matters. When I was elected Norfolk mayor, I sat on the PSB. And I garnered the support, along with the mayor of Cochrane, of 130 rural municipalities so that we could lobby the government, if that's a good word, to have affordable and accountable policing. We talked to provincial ministers, senior bureaucrats, 2 OPP commissioners, and the Auditor General, and there was a dramatic change in the OPP billing regime, which I'll describe in a minute. However, the impact of that was savings to Norfolk County in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. Following the 2014 election, I returned to private business and spent 2.5 years in Ottawa as a senior advisor on security, once again in the Privy Council Office, the Federal Treasury Board, and with the the RCMP. Then I returned home, hopefully, to a quieter life. Not to be. So what issues will we be involved with as the PSB? As indicated at my first meeting as chair, I asked the members and the OPP to consider cost containment measures. We need effective and adequate policing. That's in the legislation, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But how can we contain costs? The OPP billing now consists of 2 fundamental portions: a cost per property, and the number of properties in Norfolk is given to the OPP by MPAC, the Municipal Property Assessment Corporation. The cost per property is currently $189.52, rounded up to $190 per property. The cost for calls for service, which is the second part, calls for service, Norfolk County has billed a percentage of the total calls across all of Ontario by those municipalities that use the OPP. Our share, based on properties, is 3.6% of that total. Right now, a call for service is about $180.50. And I can tell you, and give you a bit of forewarning here, that there is an opportunity to work with you, your bylaw department, and our policing service to shrink the number of those calls for service, thereby hopefully reducing the bill. I ask you the hypothetical question: why would you want a $100,000 an hour, or sorry, a year constable to go to a raccoon call? It just doesn't make sense. Today, with Councillor Columbus, we met with the bylaw folks. We had met with them previously, and it's agreed to work together, and it's important for council to find ways to reduce the calls to the OPP. There are other issues for the PSB to consider toward a reduction in calls for service, and we'll be discussing those as time moves on. So you may see me at this podium again at some point in the very near future. Councillor, and you want to pass those around. There may be some left over for staff. Councillor Martin, thank you. So what are the issues that we're going to deal with in the very near future? Contract negotiations. The 5-year contract that was signed in 2015 is up. The contract expires the 31st of December this year. And we will be inviting, the PSB will be inviting the municipal policing folks of the OPP to a meeting, and an invitation will be extended to you and whatever staff you think should be there. OPP costs. The OPP just received a salary increase of 2.3% back to January. And 1 point something, I'm not sure the exact number, percent for each of the next 3 years. So we know that's going to be factored in. The treasurer provided me with the 2019 billing estimate, and the costs for 2019 this year were estimated at $12,909,310. In 2015, the cost was $12,805,569, and that's an increase of only slightly more than $100,000 over 5 years. And that's a result of the billing change that we lobbied long and hard for. As I say, together we can work and reduce the calls for service, which we'll be talking about more later on. Then we have Friday 13th. The OPP have indicated possible billing for extra services. We need to get it clear and correct from the Solicitor General as to what the province pays for and what the municipality pays for. I can go to the legislation and pick out certain parts that say, well, that's a provincial responsibility. They have to pay for those types of things. That's their response. But let's get it clear going into contract negotiations so we cement it in that document. Again, we're looking at what is adequate and what is effective. And it's not up to us to determine what that is. I can tell you that right now. It's in the legislation very clearly. That rests with the province. Most recently, the Ontario Provincial Police received a $46 million reduction in their budget. Their budget is $1 billion plus. So they received a $46 million reduction. It's unclear at this point as to whether that reduction will be applied across the users or taken out of their administrative side. It's another issue we have to talk to. Community policing committees, I mentioned this earlier. Most of those committees are having difficulty attracting new volunteers. And the board will be discussing this matter with the committees and the OPP later this month, actually on the 20th of this month, if all comes to fruition. And we'll get back to you on successes, because that's our link to the communities to tell us what the issues are, whether it's speeding, whether it's break-ins, whatever the case may be. Court security costs. We pay for security at the court. Currently billed for that service. New pending legislation, however, says it's not part of adequate policing. So we have to have a discussion. Is it off the bill or is it on the bill? And if it's on the bill, where is it on the bill? And even if we don't, even when we get a distinction as to where it rests, I do want to have a discussion about, with the board about court security. And this one, Community Safety and Well-Being Act. Legislated, the county, the municipality must have one. It's your responsibility to have one. The clock is ticking, January 2021. Or March 2021. If I misspoke, I'm sorry. So, it's important. There's going to be a large group of people get together, hi Bill, and talk about how you see safety and well-being in your community. There'll be a lot of people around that table trying to come up with evidence-based planning. I mention it not only because of the impact of having it dictated to you, but it feeds into all your other planning. It will feed into your strategic plan. So your strategic plan will have to be a living document, as they always are. Your economic development plan will feed into well-being. You can't direct yourself to how do we grow without directing what are the things that stop us from growing? What are the hampers? What are the negatives on this side? If it's opioids or some other thing, you better address it within your economic development strategy. So it's important to recognize that, again, the OPP are contracted to provide adequate and effective policing. Currently in the Police Services Act, every municipality to which this subsection applies, section 4, brackets 1, shall provide adequate and effective policing in accordance with its needs. So this gets back to council having a discussion amongst yourselves what your priorities are, feeding that to us so that we can then talk to the OPP and we can have that dialogue between the three of us as to what is adequate and effective policing. Core policing services. And at the top of the list, adequate and effective police services must include, at a minimum, all of the following services. And it's important to note the priority listing. Crime prevention is number 1. Law enforcement is number 2. Assistance to victims of crime, public order maintenance, and emergency response. That's the priority that's in the legislation. Infrastructure for police services, subsection 3. In providing adequate and effective police services, a municipality shall be responsible for providing all the infrastructure and administration necessary for providing such services, including vehicles, boats, equipment, communication devices, buildings, and supplies. Pending legislation, all of that is in the current Police Services Act. Pending legislation under the Community Safety and Policing Act 2019 in Schedule 1, Sub 11, adequate and effective policing means all of the following. Provided in accordance with the standards set out in regulations, which are being drafted as we speak, with respect to the avoidance of conflicts of interest and with requirements of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms and the Human Rights Code. And now we see a slight change in the priorities. The first two remain: prevention. The second one, enforcement. The third one, excuse me, maintaining public peace. Number 4, emergency response. 5 now is assistance to victims. And then 6, the catch-all, any other prescribed policing functions. However, it does not include, excuse me, the enforcement of municipal bylaws. Let me repeat that. It does not include the enforcement of municipal bylaws other than those prescribed in the contract. That's, again, we're going to have a conversation about this. And, number 2, providing court security. So now they've taken court security out. Again, we have to find out from a billing perspective where it lasts, or where it rests, sorry. And there is certainly much, much more for the PSP to absorb relative to pending legislation, pending regulations, and it'll be a busy time for all members. I recently attended the annual Association of Police Services Boards conference in Windsor, excuse me, and we were told, thank you, Amy, we were told by provincial officials, as well as the Ontario Police Association, small U union, to be vocal. I don't think I have a problem with that. Independent, and guide policing policy. So, as any other presentation or deputation, there's always give you information, then we have an ask. What's our ask? We will require staff assistance, legal, budget, financial issues as we move forward, especially for, but not limited to, contract negotiations. Because it's the PSB that negotiates the contract, you folks pay the bill. We also ask that Norfolk County discuss and determine your policing priorities, which will inform the PSB strategic plan, as well as policing policies issued by the PSB. The PSB looks forward to hearing from you on that matter. Just to give you some sort of a time frame, this is June. There's going to be a break half of July and into August, and I suspect the PSB will have the same stand-down time. And I'm gone for October, the whole month. We have one of our PSB members who term, as appointed by the previous government, expires at the end of October. And the second one The term expires the end of December. So I think we got to get on our horse pretty quick and get some fundamental details down and find out where we have latitude and flexibility in the negotiations. My reading is probably very limited, so maybe 3 areas at the most that we can sort of look at. 2 of those are going to be whatever you folks tell us. So I say we look forward to hearing from you, and if you wish for us to assist you, I can tell you that we will certainly do that. We also want your full support. Capitalize F-U-L-L, full support. The terms, as I mentioned, of 2 provincial appointees expire this year. We don't know what the philosophy is going to be in terms of maybe they stay on after their term until new ones are appointed. We have to talk to the appointment secretariat of the Ontario government. But I can tell you, in a short chat with our MPP, he's already getting names of people who want to serve on the Police Services Board. It'll be the government that appoints them, not us, not you. Further, as referenced above in my expertise and experience piece relative to council support, if there's any hesitation whatsoever about me being on this board, let me know. Let me know. I don't want to be anywhere where I'm not wanted. Okay? So, we need your full support, your confidence, and we will rise to your expectations, I'm sure. Questions? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, any questions of the committee? Councillor Mayor Chop, and then Councillor I'll get you here in a minute. Taylor.
Thank you,
Sorry.
Mr. Chair. Just wondering, Dennis, you mentioned the time frame for the police priorities, but then you didn't actually say a month or time frame.
I didn't want to put a specific timeline on it, but the sooner the better. Because if we look at going into contract negotiations, that's one thing. But at the same time, with the pending legislation changes, our police service is going to want to know what you're thinking. If your priority is substance abuse, if your priority is barking dogs, it's a bad example because that's a bylaw issue. But having said that, they do go to these things. And I can tell you, the current legislation, and you should have a copy of that. If you don't, you should get one and read it, because there are no bylaws mentioned in the current contract. In fact, there's a bylaw in there that says is not included in the contract. So, but to answer your question directly, I think before you break in July, we would like to hear from you.
I'm just wondering if we should maybe set at some point a special meeting of council, just as an additional strategy type meeting to set those priorities then at some point.
Yeah, it was fortunate this morning when we met with bylaw and the OPP that your CAO was there, and he got a sense of the importance and the urgency of moving forward. And perhaps maybe we can all get together in the back room and talk about contract.
Okay, thank you.
Further? Mr. Taylor? No. Sorry.
Thank you, Chair Geisens, and through you to Mr. Trevally. I was going to actually ask which bylaws or how many bylaws are in that current contract, but you got to that.
I can tell you how many, well, I can show you. We have the stats the OPP respond to,
Actually,
but I can tell you there's none in the contract.
None in the contract, actually. Could you give us that information on how many are responded to and sort of what nature?
Oh, my goodness. I think I better send that to you because it's...
Please.
How big a page is it, Joe?
Yeah, I certainly think that would be...
And what you have to do, and that's what we talked about this morning, right, Mike? What we have to do is marry that with your bylaw responses, and you will see how busy it can be for your bylaw if the OPP and the Police Services Board says, we're not doing that anymore. We're not going to noise. We're not going to animal issues. That's the one that's specifically mentioned, not in there. So those kinds of things. So I think it's better you get those statistics and look at them.
Yeah.
And give you a
definitely
good
think
picture.
it would be better to have that before going into the special meeting, which I think setting a date for sooner rather than later would be good to ensure everyone has the ability to attend.
And I will say, Councillor, that we recognize clearly that Monday, 5 o'clock, we end it, and you guys take over. No, that can't happen because you're still strategizing about how to deal with your bylaw division and its servicing and that kind of thing. So we know there's going to be a lag period, but the objective is going to be transference of a lot of things back to bylaw. As I said, you don't want a $100,000 a year constable going to a raccoon call. It just doesn't make sense.
And one more through you, Chair, if that's okay.
Go ahead, yes.
Historically, what level of assistance does staff provide? I mean, time-wise, how intensive is that assistance that they offer?
We have an administrator who is dedicated to us, and this time it's Owen Jagger, comes out of the clerk's office. He attends all the meetings, makes all the minutes up for us, makes the announcements relative to meeting, the schedules, the agenda, and we use them now as, I'll call it interface with the community policing committees, which on the 20th we're going to meet with the chairs of those committees and discuss that issue.
Sorry, I more so meant during the contract negotiation.
Oh, it won't be intensive, okay. No, because your treasurer, not here, your treasurer department, sorry, already has the estimate for 19. Within 6 months of contract closure, we're going to get another thing from the municipal policing section and say, here's what we're looking at.
Thank you.
Councillor Martin, and then Councillor Hoffman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question to you, Mr. Trevally, is when you talked about blending the bylaw and police services, that's something that's been very prevalent in a lot of my bylaw calls in the community, and I'm quickly learning that there's not a lot of communication between police services and our bylaw staff. Is that something that police services would address, or is that something through our strategic planning?
All of the above. We had a good discussion about that this morning. Councillor Columbus will verify to you that linkage has to be stronger, particularly when we talk about animal issues, animal control issues. If it's large animals, farm animals, there's a 1-800 number with OMAFRA that you call, but Norfolk doesn't have an SPCA or an affiliate, and so you've got to watch out what's happening with the new legislation, which on the weekend received approval from the legislature. It's not promulgated yet, but it's nothing more than a 3-page piece that kicks it down the road for a few months. But yeah, that dialogue has to happen, Councillor Martin, and certainly as chair and the other members attest this morning, we're there for you. But it's going to have to shift, and you folks are going to have to deal with that whole issue of bylaw and how you resource it and what services it provides. If you had a clearinghouse approach to things where all the calls went to one place and they were annotated and they were backfiled, BF as I call it from the military, a diary date was put on it, such what's happening on this case, all that administration. You've got the technology. Just going to have to assign somebody to bring it all together. I hope I'm not stepping on your turf there, Harry.
Councillor Hoffman.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Trevally.
Call me Dennis, for God's sake. Jeez, sound like my father.
I sound like your father, or I may?
You make me sound like Mr. Trevally. Gee.
Okay, Dennis. Question. The community policing piece, because that's something that I'm pretty passionate about. I was shocked to find out that the budgets are really low for what they get. So in my mind, those budgets are a pittance. And they really only allow them enough money to maybe do one kind of event each year. And what I tend to hear from the residents in Ward 7 are they want to see more community policing, more involvement kind of thing. So my thoughts are that those budgets do need to be looked at. When we're looking at, budgets in $1 billion frame, across the province per se, right? It's not like Norfolk County has $1 million. That's something that's definitely worth looking into. And I do want to reiterate, in terms of the animal calls, I specifically do tell people, please do not call the OPP regarding those types of things. And it is something that with no affiliation to the SPCA, we do need to get something in place.
Let me deal with the second part first.
Yep.
There is discussed this morning about the number of companies out there that respond to animal complaints and animal issues. There's a list of them that's going to be distributed to all of you if you don't currently have it. The OPP have it. So when the calls come in, it'll be deflected. No, sorry, call this number and choose one of the 6 or whatever it is on the list that you want, unless it's a dog at large, because then you have hillside kennels or something doing that. The first part of your question is, historically, the community policing budgets were handed out through community services, $22,000 a year divided up. I don't know where it comes out now, other than perhaps your grants and your services budget. It's not a PSB budget, I can tell you that right now, nor is it an OPP budget. It's your budget. So how much do you want to give to these committees is an issue. You might want to throw it into the grants portion at the beginning of the year, but supported by their input. So if they do a bicycle rodeo, they do a lock it and lose it campaign, they want to do outreach, that type of thing, have 2 or 3 meetings a year on outreach, ask the community to come in, you folks will have to budget for that.
Further? Okay, Councillor Van Passen, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Of course, I got to disagree with the chairman once in a while, but I recently had a discussion with the Minister of Agriculture. Large animals, that's the responsibility of the OPP. That's what he told me 3 weeks ago. Until they got this all sorted out, he's dealing with the Attorney General, rewriting the rules. They're negotiating to leave the SPCA in place for a little longer, but that's what he told me.
Yeah.
Raccoons, skunks, you keep bringing that up, those are the Queen's livestock. They're a provincial problem. They are not a municipal problem. You got a barking dog, we have the authority to regulate that, which we do. That's a bylaw issue. A skunk, a raccoon, a blackbird in your eaves, that's not a municipal problem. Lake Erie, it's owned by the federal government. It's not our issue.
Nope.
We don't need boats and things because we don't control it.
Yep.
Navigable waterways, the rivers, they are provincial jurisdiction.
Yep.
So yes, we do need to have a real good discussion about who's responsible for what, because I'm pretty sure that nobody knows who's doing what and who's responsible to do it. So
Thank you.
I look forward to that.
Yeah, so do I, Councillor, and I can tell you that this is something that I've been harping on for my 2 terms and past, that it has to be cleared. Potahawk's not our issue. That water is not ours. Who pays for that? Somebody else, not the municipality. And as far as large livestock, I can tell you, if you phone the OPP, they're going to phone OMAFRA, and OMAFRA's going to phone a vet, and the vet's going to say, here's what you do. In fact, we just had it with goats, just out Waterford Way. So you and I are on the same page, believe me.
Nothing further, thank you very much.
Councillor Columbus.
Sorry, I didn't see that. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
I just wanted to make comment that if the responsibilities are being reduced by the OPP in responding to some of these issues like raccoon calls and that type of thing, that it appears as though we may have to strengthen, in terms of human resources, our bylaw enforcement department. That's what it looks like we're going to be challenged with.
Councillor Rabbit.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you to Dennis. Dennis, thank you for your presentation this afternoon and for your continued public service and commitment to Norfolk County and its residents. My question is pertaining to public perception of safety. And we as a council and the Police Services Board as a governing body have a responsibility for maintaining a positive public perception of safety, and they have a very influential and critical role to play in that regard. Trust is something that takes a very long time to build up, and it can be shattered in one instance of criminality. What do you feel is the Police Services Board's role in helping to assist in managing public perception of safety with regards to evidence-based decision-making and monitoring and the collecting of data. I know we've spoken at length with regards to speeding, traffic calming measures. I'm looking forward to having that come back before this body. But in terms of surveillance, active surveillance, whether we're looking at potentially cameras placed at stoplights for those car accidents, maybe we're looking at those incidents of violent crime that are taking place, unfortunately, in some of our urban areas. How do we monitor, track, record, and act upon these instances and help counter that negative perception of public safety that is very persistent in many communities throughout Norfolk County?
Thank you for your question. And it's a team effort, first and foremost. The Police Services Board and the OPP, our policing services, are not the only tools in the toolbox. Your priorities, council's priorities, the feed that we get from the committees that are in the community are all going to form the overall approach to policing in Norfolk County and perhaps beyond. Sometimes crime doesn't necessarily respect boundaries. So I think we have to all of us put our heads together and look at what's the strategic plan that we want to develop conjointly for our policing service. What are the policies we want to put in place for our police services? Let's get the feed in from the community groups that are out there and hope we can embolden them and resurrect some that are probably on their last legs. But we have to do it within the framework of legislation, which is why I emphasized the existing Police Services Act and the priorities that are there, and prevention number one. Maybe we have to have a mental rethink on what the police do for a living, how much of their time they're spending on mental health issues, which is really, when we say about the community safety and well-being plan, that's going to be key. Because you're going to have people around that table from those communities and many others beyond them. So, yes, carry on with your corporate strategic plan, but make it a live document so you can amend it pretty quickly and fast. And all your other subservient policies will feed into it. But this one that's mandated from the province is going to be so key to what our police service does, and feeding through the Police Services Board as the interface, and we'll get it out there. As to say, we evaluate the performance of the detachment commander, our chief of police, annually. I don't know when the last time council ever got a performance document, and that's not a question, Joe. So, all I can say, Councillor Rabbits, if I'm there as the chair, I will try to guide the PSB in the direction that all my years of experience and expertise have taught me, that it's a team effort for everybody to play in the game. And the more we all get together, the more successful we're going to be. I don't know if I answered your question specifically. I will talk to you briefly and talk to council briefly about CCTV and surveillance. Almost every community, large urban community, has CCTV in its public places. And if we have a problem in downtown areas, what's wrong with putting CCTV in the public space? There's no expectation of privacy in a public place. If you want reference, you can go to Elliot Goldstein, who's a longtime lawyer out of Toronto, works with the security industry, and I've known him for many years, expert on this issue. There's no expectation of privacy in a public place. So you can put surveillance issues down there without notification even. What's the back room administration for that? You want to put it up on the internet so everybody can watch it and all the shut-ins at 3 in the morning can see what's happening downtown? Or do you want it to serve it as some sort of a deterrent? Then put signs up. If you want to have it serve as a information collection tool so that we can say, oh, look what's happening, and get it back to our police service. All of those have to be considered before you make any kind of a decision about that. But it's a possible tool. It's just another one in the toolkit.
Thank you very much, Dennis.
Sorry it takes so long.
Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you very much.
Thanks you for coming.
Thanks, folks.
We have John Lennox next. Please come to the podium. You have 10 minutes. Presentation. He just left.
I guess I'm just going to do a little history. So, Mr. Chair, Madam Mayor, councilors, and staff, I've been on this property for a long time now. I finally, we bought the property in 2005, so we're known as Dover Coast. In 2007, we were taken to the OMB by Haldeman County. They didn't want us to infringe on the industrial influence zone, and we did some amendments to it. They dropped it, and we were approved. At the time we were approved, we were given some draft conditions, and we received allocation for 284 units, or the equivalent of 511 people for water and for sewer. So it was originally draft planned for approximately 1,500 people, residents, and both south and north side of Highway 6. Since the inception of our plans in 2005 until now, Norfolk has been very supportive, and we thank them for that. I've gone through 4 mayors. Eric DeHont was our first engineer, the Works Department. And then I guess Lee Robinson after that. And at all times, we were told that there wasn't going to be any issues. So since 2005, 2007, we were under the impression there was no problems. We knew that when we got that initial allocation, we knew any further development required expansion. But it seemed that it wasn't a priority. It wasn't an issue. Not to worry, keep on going, which we did. Now we're facing some dilemmas in terms of where we're going. We have commitments for commercial. As a matter of fact, we couldn't get anybody who wanted a grocery store. Now we've got 2 that want to be on our site. We've got the hotel situation. All of those are starting to fumble with this latest announcement. So we're in a bit of a position where we would like to see us move on. MTO, we're now at the 90% submission. So we have 30, 60, we're at the 90% submission now. We have the amount, we know what the letter of credits are now to put the roundabout in. It's substantial commitment. This situation has also affected the long-term care site we have on there. That's going to come back and haunt us too. I guess what we're saying is there's got to be a short-term solution and a long-term plan that you've got to get to soon. And everybody seems to have left it. Everybody has not made it a priority. We knew it had to be a priority back in 2009. Anyway, right now, we face this. When we originally started on this, we were only selling 20 houses. Last year, we did 100. That's the market now for us, 100 units a year. And we think that this is good. You got to pick this up real fast and get it resolved. There's got to be a short-term situation, but a long-term plan. And you got to work on both of them at the same time. That's it.
Questions? Martin?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't have a question for our deputation, more of just a comment. I want to thank you for coming and providing a respectful deputation under this pretty terrible predicament I know that you find yourself in, and I just wanted to make a statement that from my seat anyways, where I sit, I recognize that there needs to be some type of solution made, and I personally, I don't want to speak for the rest of council, but I want to drill down on this issue and face it full steam ahead, and I just want to thank you for that respectful deputation, enlightening everyone with your situation.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming.
Okay.
We have one more, and then we're probably going to have a break. It's staff report PW 1942. Port Dover servicing capacity 2019. Okay, I guess we need, sorry, I did that again. I need someone to move the, moved by Martin and Hoffman. All those in favor? Thank you. Now we'll start that. Go ahead.
Thank you. Through the chair, this is a team approach presentation today. I'm going to start with some general comments about the report. Mr. Gobby is going to talk about the water capacity itself, and then Ms. Van Dalen is going to go through some developments and let you know which ones are going to proceed and which ones cannot at this point. So this report is to provide council and the development community with an update regarding the current water capacity and limitations in the Port Dover urban area and the effects on it on current and future development. A servicing report was approved by council in February of 2019, and it outlined that Norfolk County has 2,454 cubic meters of water a day in Port Dover, and we need approximately 5,400 cubic meters a day to service existing and committed developments, and developments are defined as approved but not built out. Overall, there is no capacity to be provided for developments within the urban Port Dover area at this time. And this report will inevitably freeze future development in the Port Dover area until more information on water capacity is known and it is safe to continue development in the urban area of Port Dover. I'm going to pass it over to Jason at this point.
Thank you, Pam. I guess you have all read the report, I assume, and we had some information that was provided to you at the end of last week as well. So I won't get too deep into repeating what's contained in the report, other than to say, as Pam has indicated, the crux of our issue here is just the rate at which Port Dover development approvals have gone, and the way that that town is growing has put an extreme amount of stress upon our ability to produce potable, safe drinking water for that community. It's not to say that there's any current issue right now. However, what we are saying is we need to stop and give us some time to complete some studies that we have ongoing, that we are looking at potential for optimization of the existing plant, for potential future expansions, for potentially connecting to other water supply systems. There's various reports in various stages that are ongoing right now. Talking with Mr. Houghton, our Director of Engineering, and Mr. Baird, the General Manager of Public Works. They're intending to bring a report coming in the next few months. With council break, I'm going to guess it's likely going to be the fall, which will provide you with a more detailed outline of all those findings, along with some recommendations coming to you for some guidance as to how we wish to establish a long-term solution to this problem. And with that, I will turn it over to Shannon to talk more specifically about some of the specific development issues.
Thank you, Jason. Good evening to council.
With respect to the applications and the developments that are currently ongoing, there are 8 applications that are identified on the attachment that was with the report, and those developments are identified in green. Those developments received approvals and are essentially in effect. For some of them, some level of building permits have been applied for. So those developments are available to proceed currently. We cannot revoke or take any of their allotted capacities away. Through the other developments that you will see, they are highlighted in red on that attached map that was with the report. These ones are either applications that have received some draft approval. So for those, you'll see that much of the Dover Coast development has received approvals, but haven't been registered yet. So essentially, they're in a draft stage. There's a number of other applications, essentially looking at about 5 other applications where we've received applications that are in, but they haven't proceeded to the approvals process right now. These reports, these applications are for the land use components typically, or subdivision control, or excuse me, subdivision approval. With those, you will most likely be seeing them come forward for decision, for recommendation, and through that, staff generally would be taking a position that we cannot approve them at this time because there is no capacity in play. Council does, as it was identified in the report, there is an opportunity for a holding provision to be applied to those applications until capacity is online. But with respect to the developments, if there's any other questions, I'm happy to answer those.
So in summary, staff know how very important capacity is, water capacity is in the Port Dover area for our fastest growing development community. Mr. Lennox, thank you for your comments. We see that in the gallery there is attendance from the home builders with Sam Bunting. We see John Valley. We know that this is a very important matter to our developers, and we want to assure our community that we are working and doing everything possibly we can as Public Works and Development Community or Development Cultural Services. We are providing our developers in Port Dover registered letters tomorrow that will go out. We're offering times of June 14th to meet with each of them to talk through about the specifics in each development. We've also received a letter. It's on your blotters today. It's from Mr. Arians, who's representing the Meisner Landing development in Port Dover. As Shannon outlined, they have an official plan amendment and a zoning bylaw amendment. It's on page 46 of the report. They will be coming before council for an information report before summer recess, and then in the fall for a recommendation report. We will be recommending a holding provision on that property. And because it's simply land use, they will be able to receive those approvals, but what we are recommending in the report is that we don't take any future applications in terms of site plan or subdivisions in Port Dover until we know more about the water capacity. And that concludes our comments. Thanks.
Councillor Columbus.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the planners, is there any allocated capacity that you feel will not be utilized that we can actually take away and move? I think that's happened before in the past.
Through you, the chair, to Councillor Columbus, that's a very good question. We do have policies that are approved in Norfolk County. They're referred to as a use it or lose it policy. They were approved some years ago. We do have the opportunity to withdraw capacity from developments that have been approved that aren't moving forward. At this time in the Port Dover area, I don't know that there are specifically any opportunities, not that I can think of offhand, where developers aren't moving forward. But if there are, yes, that's an opportunity.
Nothing further? I guess it comes down to the recommendation that's on the page 49. And staff report PW 1942, Port Dover servicing capacity 2019 be received as information, and that the staff be directed to communicate this information to the developed community, and further that lands within Port Dover urban settlement corridor boundary be placed in development moratorium until such time as measures to expand plant capacity can be developed and approved by council. Additional water capacity in the urban area of Port Dover is a high priority for the public works. Anybody, a motion? Councilor Chops. Council, Mayor, Mayor, I'm screwed up. Anyway, Councilor Van Passen. Seconder, yes. All those in favor? That carries. We are going to take a break. Thank you very much.
On a strip of sandy soil lies a county called Norfolk. It's Ontario, south coast, you know, and it's surely not remote. If you pass through or spend a day or decide to call it home, you'll see why we love it here and are proud to call it our own. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Take in the small town atmosphere, be amazed at all that we grow. Like our kids that go and see the world and can't wait to return home. Drop a line in a placid lake or stroll along the shore. Take a tour on a peaceful country road and bound to be back for more. Of Norfolk, Norfolk, my southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. With hard work we built a dream that only willing hands could do. It's on display at our fall fairs and at all the festivals too. Erie beaches, Carolinian forests, where the flower and dogwoods bloom. Patchwork fields and rolling hills, it's just the place for you. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger along. Norfolk, 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 you won't be a stranger along. On a strip of sandy soil lies a county called Norfolk. It's Ontario, south coast, you know, and it's surely not remote. If you pass through or spend a day or decide to call it home, you'll see why we love it here and are proud to call it our own. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong Take in the small town atmosphere, be amazed at all that we grow. Like our kids that go and see the world and can't wait to return home. Drop a line in a placid lake or stroll along the shore. Take a tour on a peaceful country road and bound to be back for more. Of Norfolk, Norfolk, my Southern County home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. With hard work, we built a dream that only willing hands could do. It's on display at our fall fairs and at all the festivals too. Erie beaches, Carolinian forests, where the flower and dogwoods bloom. Patchwork fields and rolling hills, it's just a place for you. Norfolk, Norfolk, a Southern County home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Norfolk, 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 you won't be a stranger long. On a strip of sandy soil lies a county called Norfolk. It's Ontario's south coast, you know, and it's surely not remote. If you pass through or spend a day or decide to call it home, you'll see why we love it here and are proud to call it our own. Norfolk, Norfolk, a Southern County home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Take in the small town atmosphere, be amazed at all that we grow. Like our kids that go and see the world and can't wait to return home. Drop a line in a placid lake or stroll along the shore. Take a tour on a peaceful country road and bound to be back for more. Of North.
If Canada has a heartbeat, that heartbeat is the Canadian farm. For over 150 years, Canadian farmers have faced the toughest conditions head-on, with one goal in mind: to get food to your table.
Well, obviously, the farm is kind of a celebration of the hard work of our family. So as many farms are, they're kind of a staple of family unity, family work.
This farm's been in our family for about 4 generations, since the 1800s. So we've focused on orchard and asparagus. So we grow apples, tart cherries, and some pears.
I enjoy being part of a business that impacts so many different families and really helps improve the quality of life for people.
My parents and I, well, we purchased the farm in 1990, but personally been doing it for almost about 20 years on my own.
It sure is fun getting up in the morning and having something that's actually contributing.
Horticulture is a quarter of agriculture in Canada. And it's what you actually go to the grocery store and pick that apple, pick that cherry.
Healthy eating is a hot topic these days, so it just seems like we're involved in an industry that's really in the hip and the now.
We have a microclimate in Canada that we can grow almost all the different types of fruit and vegetables that we need.
It's hard work, tilling and planting and pruning and harvesting, working the land and gambling that the weather gods will be kind.
Efficiency is absolutely critical. Attention to detail is absolutely critical. And to try and hire enough local people, we know isn't possible. There's a huge labor gap, especially in horticulture across the country.
Most people don't understand agriculture as a whole. I don't think they understand how much work goes into production. A lot of it's physical labor, so it is a lot of us picking, packaging, like we package all of our cucumbers by hand.
The days are possibly gone of lots of people realizing the benefits of working outside, getting some fresh air, using their muscles.
The reality is that lots of local people, they don't want to work in the farm because everybody looking for other jobs, inside, indoor jobs, right?
En sachant que le bassin d'emploi ici au Québec, Canada, on n'a pas de gens, c'est plate à dire, compétents pour faire la tâche. Des gens qui sont prêts à travailler de très très longues heures dans des conditions chaudes pour faire un ouvrage qui est essentiel pour la production agricole.
We used to hire a lot of local teenagers. They simply weren't interested in working the long hours outside in the sun. They wanted, short 3-hour days and just 3 days a week, and then they were on vacation for the 3 weeks that strawberries were ready. So it just was really hard to schedule and manage all of that.
For the last half-century or so, a group of people from places like Guatemala, Mexico, Trinidad and Jamaica, people like Shervin, Nalini, Babu and Joe, have come to Canada every year, stood beside our farmers and greenhouse operators, and made it possible for this extraordinary work to take place. And we've opened our hearts to them. That's just how it is in Canada.
If I didn't have access to labor from the Seasonal Agriculture Worker Program, I don't think I would be farming. My last year farming without bringing in my employees from Mexico, man, I was ready to give up. Just for my Golden Delicious, I went through 16 different people. Some people would say, oh, we'll be there tomorrow. They wouldn't show up. Other people would show up, but they would just be, dropping the apples like crazy, turning them into juice.
So the temporary foreign worker programs are essential in filling that gap, but also because you have the opportunity to offer a person a contract the next year, and they have the opportunity of whether or not they want to work for you again the next year. You have that opportunity to have consistency of training, so you're not training a whole group of people every year.
It's the way the world functions. We have to compete in this country against a lot of offshore products that are manufactured, grown, whatever, in economies where the standard of living is nowhere near what we dream of and live in Canada. If I did not have international farm workers, I would not be here. It's that bad. Reliable labor. Period.
We're the Canadian Horticultural Council, and we want you to meet the workers who make our farms and greenhouses thrive, and the Canadian farmers who are their hosts. So, we're going to share some of those stories with you so you can find out what's going on down on the farm.
Pues allá ahorita están 180 todo el día, 200 cuando mucho.
I'm asking him what's the payment back in Mexico. He says maximum 200 pesos a day, which is equivalent to $12, $13 for a whole day.
I started this program from 1988, and it take care of my family. the children to school. When I started it, I didn't know that I would be on it so long. But I started at a young age, and I grew on it. I have that love for this program.
It wasn't very complicated. We would apply for workers in the past, and it happened to be all men. Then one year we get a phone call from the Trinidad office going, you know, we'd like to know if you wouldn't mind having women on your farm. And we looked around and go, yeah, like what do you mean, would we mind?
I love the farm, right? This is my first experience being on a farm, and for me, it is very nice being here. I got the opportunity to help my family, so it is really, really nice for me.
When I started in 2009, they was taking women, and before they were saying they was taking men on this farm, but then he decided to take women, which I was glad to come here.
And I've learned to do different things that I never thought that I could do, but I think at this farm you get a lot of opportunities, and it's up to you to take it and try new things.
This is like people back home, we would say this is our bread and butter. When we say our bread and butter, this is what we do to gain money. So if it's ever taken away from us, we don't know where we will fall. We don't know where we stand. So I think this is a very good opportunity for us, and having us come to Canada every year, it does a lot for us Trinidadians.
And it's not all about working, because I did some courses too, like first aid, to be on the field out here in case of somebody getting injured. I can assist. I got a certificate in it. And I learned to drive the bus. I also am trained to drive forklift.
I think I have to prove myself to myself first. Yeah, that I could do it. And then my employers would see that I could do it.
Working here, working in Jamaica, the difference is like the money. That is a huge difference, right? So when you have $1 a year, you have $97 back home in Jamaica. So when you have $1,000 here, it's $97,000 back home. So that make a big difference, right?
Like that is like, it's like when people from Nova Scotia go to Alberta, like they leave here, go to Alberta and make big money. Same with the guys from Jamaica. So it's like this awesome opportunity to make a bunch of money.
It's a better standard of living overall.
Acabé mi casa, hice una sala con mármol, forré mi baño de mármol, compré una sala, un refrigerador y pues le hice sus sueños a mi hija, ¿no? Unos 15 años que ella tanto quería, y gracias a Dios, pues ya trabajo de Canadá, pues le hice su sueño a mi hija.
Thanks to this job here in Canada, he finished his house, and he gave his daughter her dream, which was to have his big party of 15 years old. That's like a dream for every 15-year-old girl. And many fathers start saving for that since they are babies, since the daughters are babies.
On our team here, his name is Bobby, and his wife had called him earlier that week saying that the textbook bill had come in, and it was quite extravagant. It was going to be like 40,000 Jamaican dollars.
She texted me for the cost for the book list. Yeah, and it's way more than I've expected.
Big bill, but he was so thankful to say that he told her to go ahead and write the check and pay the bill, because he has a job here in Canada that he could support his family back in Jamaica so they could do their post-secondary education and carry on.
The program here just make it simple. Yeah, I just thank God for this program, that I could be able to pay his school fee off, pay his book list off, and have everything under control. Yeah.
C'est leur ouvrage qui vivent au Guatemala. On a des ouvriers guatémaltèques ici. Ils sont des producteurs agricoles au Guatemala. Ils savent qu'est-ce que ça prend, qu'est-ce que c'est, puis ils ont une passion pour la production aussi.
This is agriculture. Food production doesn't have the margins enough to pay a lot of money. But for Mexican workers, I know that the impact of this money is a lot. It's big for their lives. Their kids go to good schools, their kids will have opportunities, they will have small businesses, they will have better lives. And I can testify that every 2 weeks when they get paid, they go to send the money, and that goes to the wife, that goes to build the house, that goes to the expenses, or maybe to have some chicken, some pigs, whatever they need to do there, with the help of their families in Mexico.
Bueno, la verdad nosotros venimos a trabajar aquí por la misma necesidad que en Guatemala no es posible para poder alimentar a un hijo, donarle una educación, donarle un vestimenta, alimentos. Es muy difícil. La oportunidad que tenemos aquí en Canadá es muy grande. Ahora los pequeños bebés son mucho más alegres. Ellos felices con un pequeño regalo, una casa mucho mejor. Ellos, de verdad, es aunque un poco triste cuando uno partir, pero realmente al regresar ellos se sienten mucho más felices porque sí se sabe que realmente la necesidad que viene a cubrir uno aquí sí vale la pena.
Few Canadians are aware of the fact that there is a career path for international farm workers. Just like in any other industry, hard workers who demonstrate skills, initiative, and leadership move from pickers to team leaders to supervisors. Many have brought their families here and settled. Some have even bought existing properties here in order to start a new life as Canadian farmers.
I started the program in 2009. I started out in the greenhouse as we all came here to do. I remember the greenhouse supervisor, he said to me, you know what, Sherv, I'm not going to send you to work in the warehouse ever, because if I send you to the warehouse, they are not going to send you back over here. So he made the awesome mistake of sending me to the warehouse, and the rest is history. I started out as a packer there, and I gradually climbed up the chain. Now I'm the warehouse manager.
Shervin is here. He's here alongside with his wife Monique, who goes to school here, and he really has embraced our culture in itself. And Shervin, this is where he'll start a family.
My workers are totally invested in my business, and we have an understanding that, you know, I have to be successful, and if I'm successful, they'll have more work. We can we'll expand. We'll be leasing more orchards or buying more orchards. We can bring more workers, so it helps everybody.
The program is very regimented by the government in terms of what we have to do and how we have to do and what we have to report, and we have all kinds of regulations built around worker safety and employment standards and so on. It's reviewed every year by both the employers and the employees, so it is collective bargaining on issues of what's provided to workers at the workplace and how workers are treated. So a lot of thought and energy has got into that from the Canadian government, from the foreign governments, and from the employers. So it's really, the onus is on the employer to respect that and to cooperate with the rules, and everything will go good for you.
Right now I have around, I think, about 60 worker from the program. And every year that it's growth. Every year we get more and more.
So what we get from Jamaica are some really great, I call them highly skilled farm workers. They are professional farmers.
There's a lot of goodwill from people in the community who understand the value of this program to the community. And local business leaders definitely know what the economic impact is of this. Because for every $10 that I spend on a worker's wage, it has a ripple of effect of about $30 in the local economy. And there have been studies on that to verify that.
The economic spin-off that Leamington enjoys from the migrant workers being here is substantial. Our guesstimate is more along the $18 million a year in economic input into this community, just from their shopping habits that they have. So when you look at the greenhouse industry as a whole, even our field farmers, where these migrant workers are working, it's more than just the greenhouse industry. It's all the spin-off industry that's really hard to put your fingers on, but it's in the millions. So it's been very good for our municipality. The spin-off to employment, whether it's the trucking companies, the packaging firms, a greenhouse operation employs so many people outside of the temporary foreign workers that it's huge in this community for sure.
Yeah, we have guys that have come to us since we started. Now since 2010, every year, and a lot of times at the end of the day, you go out and you talk to them. And then 5 years ago, we started a baseball league in Leamington, and I did it just because I wanted to get to know them a little bit more, just than always me as an employer and them as an employee. And that's why we went out on a Sunday afternoon, and they had nothing to do, and we got a couple teams together and started playing baseball. So. That the migrant workers get to know the local people more of the migrant workers, and then just Sunday afternoon have some fun. And it got pretty serious. We got 5 teams now that we're playing every Sunday afternoon, and it's a lot of fun. And that's how we can share a lot of things. And they talk more of their personal things and that they do in Mexico and what they have done in Mexico. And because when we started, I told them, I said, we're all friends.
We communicate via Wi-Fi pretty much every day. And, I talk to my wife every day, and that's, with the telephone. My daughter, my grandson, I video chat my grandson 3 or 4 times a week.
We have Wi-Fi, we can talk back to our Wi-Fi in the bank. And can see my family, see my little kids running up and down and say, Daddy, when you coming back? And say, Daddy, remember you bring that thing for me,
Que haya una comunicación constante, ¿no? Tanto con la mujer, con los hijos. Por la cosita más mínima que sea, hazle sentir que tú estás ahí. Que tú estás ahí para ellos, ¿no? Tanto para la mujer como para tu hijo. Cualquier duda que tengan, te la puedan preguntar, sientan la confianza. No porque estamos a miles de kilómetros, ¿no?
On a strip of sandy soil lies a county called Norfolk. It's Ontario, south coast, and it's surely not remote. If you pass through or spend a day or decide to call it home, you'll see why we love it here and are proud to call it our own. Norfolk take in the small town atmosphere, be amazed at all that we grow. Like our kids that go and see the world and can't wait to return home. Drop a line in a placid lake or stroll along the shore. Take a tour on a peaceful country road, bound to be back for more. Of Norfolk, Norfolk, my Southern County home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. With hard work, we built a dream that only willing hands could do. It's on display at our fall fairs and at all the festivals too. Erie Beaches, Carolinian.
Ready to move forward. Staff report CS 1911, award of tender. CSPR 1906, 2019 ash tree removal. Who's got that one? Okay, go ahead. Counselor, go ahead. Michelle, yeah, I got it. Don't
Thank you,
worry
Mr. Chair.
about it.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to ask staff about, as you know, the plan is to remove 717 ash trees, and I'm just going to ask Mr. Cridland if it is possible, where it's possible and practical, if when those trees, particular trees, are going to be cut down, if they are close to residents' properties, or if there's going to be some question by the resident about why it's being cut down or that kind of thing, can be some communication with them about that.
Okay, go ahead.
Through the chair to Councillor Michelli. Yeah, a good question. This is year 5 of 5 for this, so I think when the program first come out, it was communicated a little better probably. I guess we're thinking that most residents do know about it. However, in talks with Adam Biddle, the forest superintendent, there is a letter that will go to the individuals allowing them for a replant. So these would be front yard trees, not necessarily along the bushes. And in talking and taking Councillor Michelli's thoughts, and we'll get that letter out sooner than later. So hopefully the letter for the replant will come down prior to the tree being cut, and residents can put that together. That's a good observation, and we can speed that up.
Thank you, Mr. Cridland. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. We need to deal with that now because so the recommendation is on page 15. The recommendation that staff report CS 1911, award of tender, ash tree removal be received as information, and that the general manager of community services be authorized to execute a contract with cutting edge tree services for the supply for the necessary labor, materials, equipment, and for the removal of ash trees as specified in tender CSPR 19-06 in the amount of $135,966, excluding taxes, and further that the 2019 ash tree removal project be funded from the issuance of debentures up to the maximum of $200,000. Mover, go ahead.
Just cutting edge tree service. Have they completed work for us previously?
Through the chairman to the councillor, yes, they have.
And what is the time deadline for these trees to be removed? Sorry.
Through the chairman to Councillor Columbus, I don't have that date. I believe it is I believe the cutting's to be done at the end of September, but I'll double check that and maybe email council Because the other thing I should have mentioned in this is, obviously, there's about $65,000 left on the table, and we've had this happen, I think, 2 of the 5 years where we've had extra money. So in the fall, we've put out a second tender, still stayed within the $200,000, but maximized to get as many trees as we can. So I will double-check that date, but I believe it is the end of September.
I think that's a good rate, $190 a tree roughly.
Further? If not, I need someone to move it, and the seconder, Councillor Columbus and Councillor Rabbit. All those in favor? That is carried. Moving on to the next one, which is Staff Report CAO 2020, that the delegation of authority, letters of support, special occasion permits, events of municipal significance, temporary liquor license extension. And that is on page 17. Who has that? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think I don't really have so much a question as I do have a comment. I just want to commend staff for recognizing the need, I feel, for the requirement of the ward councillor or councillors, if that's the case, to have their approval. And so that there is the 2 things I think that are very important is that, first of all, the ward councillors want to make sure, and this ensures that they are accountable for their role in this process, and also that because they do have that right of refusal, they also are the ones who are the most in touch and most familiar with the maybe particular circumstances of their ward. So I just want to commend staff on coming up with that idea and putting that as an addition into this this process. So thank you.
Okay. The recommendation that report CAO 19-20 be received as information, and that the delegation bylaw be delegation. That's not correct, is it? Delegated. Sorry, I got it yet. That the bylaw be presented to council for approval. All those in favor? I need a second or a first or second, please. Sorry, second. Okay. Councillor Michele and Mayor Chop. Okay. All those in favor? That is carried. Okay. Moving on to staff report FS 1919, that the 2018 development charges obligatory reserve fund annual statements. That is on page, gotta find it, just give me a minute. That would be page 53. Find it. There we go. Who's got this one? Go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Council, as required through the Development Charges Act, Report FS 1919 is before Council tonight. It's an annual report describing the activities during 2018 as it related to the Development Charges Reserve Fund. Attachment 1 provides an overall summary of the Development Charge Reserve Fund balances, outlining developer contributions and interest earned on the reserve funds. These amounts are offset by transfers to fund growth-related capital projects and debt payments. Norfolk County's Development Charges Reserve Fund surplus unaudited balance for December 31st, 2018 is $9.4 million. Currently, we have one reserve fund, the Library Development Charge Reserve Fund, that is in a negative balance. That's mainly due to certain growth-related projects that are initiated prior to collection of the related development charges. And usually we go ahead with the projects so that we don't so that development can proceed and they don't have to wait until the actual contributions have been received by the developers. So in this case, it was basically the Delhi Library Expansion Project that put this reserve fund in a negative balance at this time. You'll notice on page 56 on attachment 1, the note describes if the balance is a negative, it's a surplus. Please disregard that. Note should be removed. That's the accounting records. Generally, a development charge reserve fund, if it's in a negative balance, accounting-wise, it is in a surplus. But we find many people have a difficult time understanding that, so we've been endeavoring to, in our reports and anything on the internet, to show it the opposite. So, because most people are familiar, if it's positive, it's a surplus. If it's negative, it's a deficit. So at this time, I'll just leave it at that. If you have any questions related to the statements, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, questions? Mayor Chop?
Just a question about the parking obligatory development charge reserve fund and the fact that there's nothing in it. I'm just wondering, we have seen situations though where people are making that contribution, right, for parking, like if they don't have the spaces. Has that not occurred on a number of occasions? Or is that somewhere different?
Through the chair, I apologize. Could you say the question again?
Well, just normally when we're approving planning applications and stuff and people don't meet the required number of parking spaces, there's that cash in lieu portion of that development charge for those parking spaces. So I'm just wondering, does that go into a different account?
Through you, the chair, it's my understanding that if an application asks for relief, they're not paying into cash in lieu for parking. The odd case, used to be a lot of developments in the downtown that would go through for cash in lieu, but our current zoning does not permit or require parking in the downtown any longer. So there's very few instances where we take in cash in lieu for parking.
So in the past, when all of that money would have been collected, I know in Dover it did occur, that's been used up then? Additional parking has been provided somewhere?
That's correct. Or they've asked for relief.
No, I'm just wondering where the funds that would have previously been in that account from that would have gone to. I don't think that we've purchased any parking lots.
That I'm not sure of.
Through the chair to Mayor Chop, I believe the cash in lieu parking that we received is in a separate reserve fund.
Okay. So there's probably still something there then.
That's correct, and I'll double check and make sure that that is correct.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Nothing further? That report FS 1919-2018 Development Charges Obligatory Reserve Fund Annual Statement be received as information, and that the 2018 Development Charges Annual Reserve Fund Statement shall be made available to Norfolk County website or upon request. Any questions or not? I need a mover and a seconder.
Just want to, so we were striking the or upon request at the beginning. There's just a correction there that they're going to strike the upon request.
Okay, I'm sorry.
They are going to be posted.
All right, sorry. Upon request. Further? All those, sorry, a mover and a seconder. Mayor Chops. Councilor Taylor. All those next? All those in favor? Thank you. Next. Staff report FS 220-2019 Delhi and Simcoe Business Improvement Areas Budget. There is a recommendation on report FS 1920-1999 Delhi and Simcoe Business Improvement Areas Budget be received, and that the Delhi Business Improvement Area 2019 operating budget be approved as submitted, and that the Simcoe Business Improvement Area 2019 interim special charge be set at the 2018 level, and further that staff prepare the bylaw to approve the special BIA levy to rateable properties within the Delhi and Simcoe BIAs. And a mover and a seconder, and then we could have, okay, go ahead. All those You got questions first for this, or do you want to have a?
I do, Mr. Chair. I'm
Go ahead.
understanding, are we going to discuss and then move, or moving first?
We can discuss it first, yes? Go ahead.
I'm just, I guess, my question is to staff here with regard to the Simcoe Business Improvement Area. The board has decided that they're going to, or if the board cannot work with the proposed allocation as it's set out here in the amount of $203,800, that a subsequent report will be presented to council, and I'm just kind of wondering if I could just get a brief explanation about how that will work.
Okay, who has that?
Through the chair to Councillor Michelli. This is a really odd situation this year. Generally, this report is presented early March, beginning of April. It was put on hold while the board was being decided on. So in order for them to have some type of cash flow and have some funds to pay their bills, and the final tax billing is going out, through discussions with the treasurer, it was decided to, at least in an interim time, allocate last year's budget, hoping that the budget that they request will not be as high as, or any higher than the 2018 level, given there's probably been some savings since the board hasn't really been in action for a couple months or a month or so. But what we will do, we will bring back a report to council to address any issue if they require more funds, and at that time the treasurer will recommend how to proceed.
Thank you, Kathy. And Mr. Chair, I would like to ask another question after Councillor Columbus, please.
Okay. Councillor Columbus?
Mr. Chair, the Delhi BIA, the budget went up 0.01% or $340. And that's a total of, what we got here, $28,000 for 2019. But at one time, it was over $30,000, I believe. But as buildings get knocked down, that type of thing, these numbers change, and that's why. So this year, it's gone up from $27,600 budget in 2018 to $28,000 in 2019. Just to clarify that.
Further? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'm not sure if staff are going to be able to answer this question, but I'm looking at that same budget that Councillor Columbus is referring to. And under expenditures, the first item, it says it's beautification. I'm thinking that is a typo. That's beautification. Is that correct? No, not tonight. Okay, we haven't been mispronouncing anything tonight. But anyway, I'm just curious about if that is beautification. The amount there, $3,800. I'm kind of just curious, what is included in that amount of money that beautification is spending on that? I'm thinking maybe the only person who might be able to answer that possibly is Councillor Columbus, because I know he sits on that board.
Well, I would like to answer that. The beautification is a new word that we came up with in that community. Anyway.
That was a Norfolk word, actually, yes.
It sounds like it's from the Middle East. Anyway, the $3,800 is spent on benches, repairing benches, trees, lighting in the trees, that type of thing. And that they have a budget for that each year.
You, Councillor Columbus.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Someone to move the recommendation? Okay. I've read it. You are first. And who was the second one? Councillor Columbus. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Moving on. We got one left here. Delegation of authority to approve Section 357 to 359 tax adjustments. Who's got that one? Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Through the chair to council, this report deals with streamlining a current process to make it more efficient and improve service delivery to property owners. The Municipal Act includes a process that amends the returned assessment roll upon application from property owners due to certain events. The annual assessment roll is delivered to municipalities in December each year to be used as the basis for taxation the following year. Sometimes, due to timing errors or other changes to property are not reflected in the roll. An example of an event would be a house that was destroyed by fire. The value of an intact house is included in the property's annual assessment, and the property owner will be taxed based on the total assessment. Section 357 of the Municipal Act provides a mechanism to have both MPAC and the municipality amend the assessment roll to reflect that the structure has been destroyed. The process itself is quite lengthy and formal and requires that applications be presented to council for approval at a public meeting and that owners be formally notified before and after the meeting. Typically, these reports are presented to council 3 times a year and include several applications. The first report of 2019 was presented and approved March 26, 2019, and it included 50 applications. What the report before you today proposes will reduce some of the formality and allow staff to process applications more often and much more quickly. Delegating approval authority to staff will save council's time, and property owners' issues will be finalized more quickly. The 2019 levy-supported operating budget includes $125,000 for the processing of these applications. The total actual cost in 2018 was $42,000. For accountability and transparency, the proposed delegation of authority will require that staff provide an information report to council on an annual basis. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions? Councillor Martin?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Sue, for the report, the information in the report. Just a quick question. There, $42,000 was spent. The remainder of the funding compared to the $129 that was allocated, what happens with that?
Through the chair to Councillor Martin, that just becomes part of surplus. So it's very difficult to estimate on an annual basis what those applications will come in at. Some years they could be closer to 125, so it's just a nominal percentage increase year over year. And if we don't hit it, well, that's just money we don't spend.
Okay, and then is it rolled over?
No, it becomes part of surplus to offset other costs within the year. There'll be a new budget the following year.
Okay, thank you. And then not so much a question, just a comment that I have been working with Sue with regards to a Port Dover property owner, and Sue's been very helpful, and part of the frustration from this property owner has been the duration and the time to have her property assessed or reassessed and come to council, come to council chambers and have it dealt with. So I think that this would help with some of those efficiencies. Thanks, Sue.
Anything further? Anybody want to move the recommendation that staff report FS 1922, delegation of authority to approve section 357, 359 tax application be received, and the pursuant to section 23 of the Municipal Act 2001, council delegates its authority under section 357, 358, and 359 to the treasurer or the person designated to bylaw to present the treasurer in such matters, and that, I got it, is that okay? that by March 31st each of the year an information report be provided to council listing the tax adjustment that were made in the previous year, and further that a bylaw be passed to give effect to the above. Anybody want to move that? Go, okay. All those in favor? That is carried. We have Martin and Taylor as the movers and seconder. Okay. Now we have one more, I guess, that's coming, and that is notice of motion. And I think that, sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
I have a notice of motion that resolution number 5 of the council minutes of January 30th, 2019, respecting property tax increment grant be reconsidered. May I speak to it briefly?
Go ahead.
I've recently had a lot of concerned business owners reaching out to me. They would also like to have an opportunity to speak to it, and their concerns are overreaching throughout Norfolk. So I would like them to be heard and then have this matter reconsidered.
What do we do? Okay. Okay, bring it forward. Okay. Any other? Councillor Michelli, do you have something as well?
No, Mr. Chair, I was going to suggest that Councillor Taylor had something.
Okay. So what are we doing? You want to put it forward? Sorry? Under other business? Okay, we'll do it that way. We do have a motion for the...
there's no motion.
Well, I thought she was going to read it. She's not going to read it today?
No.
Okay.
It'll be next week.
Okay, under other business. Go ahead. You want to read it?
I don't have any other business.
Okay, any other business?
Through you, Chair, I do have one.
Okay.
As you know, AMO is this year, August 18th to August 21st. We received our first request for applications, and that was through the Leader of the Opposition, the NDP Leader of Opposition, the Liberal Caucus, and the Green Party. So those applications, we have some time before we have to submit. We haven't received the applications from the ministers themselves yet. That should be coming in the next week or two. What we'll do is we'll make sure that all of council is aware of any of the applications that we'll go forward with. Make sure you're engaged on what we're going forward with no later than July 8th. That's our last meeting, and be prepared for August. But we want to make sure we'll be communicating a bit on the fly to let you know what we, and maybe getting your feedback on what we should request as well. So stay tuned to that.
Okay, anything else? Mr. Cridlin, your turn.
Nothing this evening, thank you.
Yourself, go ahead.
Yes, thank you through the chair. Just two quick things. Just in regards to a few questions that a general nature I've received from council. Our roadside grass mowing contractor is scheduled to begin on June 10th. We estimate it'll be a few weeks of work there. Just for your information, we do this in the spring and in the fall. Our fall cut is usually a little more intensive. We cut back a little more, but generally speaking, the spring cut is one swath along all the roadside ditches. And on a totally unrelated matter, the staff are working towards comprehensive speed bylaw, which will be brought forth in front of this council later in the year. And the reason I'm telling you this is we've received a number of petitions or requests about varying places across the county where we're being asked to look at speed reductions. So unless it is the desire of council to deal with these each on a one-by-one basis, our intention would be to roll this all into our comprehensive review where we're looking at everything across the county. So that includes some information that have been received about Round Plains, St. Andrews Street in Port Dover, the one intersection in Linville, I guess there were some concerns about, and Rattlesnake Harbor. If there's any others that specifically you have in mind, please just forward them on and we'll make sure that they get looked at. Thank you.
Pam Dusling?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Councillor Huffman asked me to bring to Council's attention, as well as our residents of the Waterford area, that we have a new large subdivision that's being built in the north end of Waterford called the Villages of Waterford. Developer Tom O'Hara has heard residents complaining about sandstorm as lots of topsoil is being moved. And he's gone above and beyond in including hydroseed, topsoil, and all-natural tassifiers, which will bind the sand. And he's also going to grow some clover as the development's moving along. He's expecting that the building should happen in about 4 to 6 weeks, and he'll have a water truck on site as well. So all of these additional measures have costed the developer about $30,000 extra. So a big shout out to Mr. O'Hara. Thank you.
Okay, further?
Nothing this evening, thanks.
Nothing this evening.
That's it? Okay. Moving on. Counselor Taylor.
I'd just like to
Come
remind
around,
everyone
don't worry.
that the
Okay.
Squeaky Wheel Community Bike Fair takes place between 1 and 4 p.m. this Saturday at Simcoe Lions Park on Davis Street East. All riders taking part must wear helmets. And it's a great time to have all of your safety gear looked over.
Further? Anyone else?
Nothing from me.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I think we're going around this way now. This Thursday, June the 6th, Norfolk County residents and all Canadians will be commemorating the D-Day landings that took place on June 6th of 1944. There will be many activities taking place in commemoration of this event throughout Norfolk County, and if you have an opportunity to go and pay your respects to those who came before us, I would encourage you to do so. And maybe on a lighter note, this Saturday, June 8th, is my mother's birthday, Cheryl Rabbits, and I just wanted to wish her a happy birthday. Happy birthday, Mom.
Well, that's great. I've got a few items here. And Mr. Godby, you'd mentioned about the grass cutting. I'm glad you mentioned that because with all the rain, the grass is growing tall. People are saying they cannot egress and ingress properties safely. And the other one that comes up at the same time is the line painting. I had some security crossing guards express concern about the line. The lines aren't clear enough. Wonder when the lines will be painted on crosswalks and our roadways.
Through the chair to Councillor Columbus, I don't have that information on me this evening. However, I will get an update on that for you and report back.
It's potentially a safety issue, I guess. The other one I have is perhaps Shelley. It's the provincial offenses court, the revenues. How's our collections coming? I think it's in her department. And where is that? I think we have several $100,000 coming, don't we?
Through the chair to Councillor Columbus, with respect to POA collections, a couple of points that I can advise tonight without the statistics in front of me. I think it's not hundreds of thousands of dollars, it's millions of dollars. I think at budgets it was estimated at over $5 million, but I will get that number for you. The other piece is with respect to collections, we're just about to issue a collections RFP. It's expiring this year, so we're going out to RFP for collection agencies. And then thirdly is there will be a report coming forward to council. It has been deferred because of some other priority items with an overall POA review and give the background on sort of what we do in POA, what kind of collections we have, what kind of charges we have. So that was intended to come before summer recess, and we're still attempting to get that to you, but we'll get it as soon as possible. But I can follow up with that number with you quite quickly.
Thanks for that update. And lastly, the Hastings Drive, I was down there yesterday. The survey work that was done between Canada Wildlife and who owns what property, where's all that at this point in time? I know there's some of the people in that area have actually moved rocks onto the roadway, and do we have an indication of where that whole process is at?
Through you, Chair, I'll take that back. There's no one here to answer this at that time, but we'll get that information.
Okay, thank you.
Further?
Yes, I do. I would like to just very quickly touch on page 78 of your agenda. To my colleagues, you will find the Meisner Dam Repair and Silver Lake Revitalization Task Force report. This report comes directly from the task force to you all and touches on a variety of different aspects of their investigation and what they've been working on and what their findings are to share with you all. I won't go through it, but I wanted you to just be aware that it is there. Additionally, there has been a large conversation based around revitalization of the lake and what that looks like from a community initiative standpoint, coming to council on a case-by-case basis. You were also emailed a statement of understanding in your inbox that is there for your perusal with 5 major signatures on it from Port Dover. Without the Board of Trade, it represents close to 400 people who are looking to bring this issue back to the table and look for your support. So that is all tonight.
Councillor Van Passen.
Nothing today, Mr. Chairman.
Hoffman, did I get it right or wrong?
Thanks, guys.
She made me sure I got it right this time.
Too fun tonight. Just a reminder to everyone that there is some staff have put together a viewing party. A miniature Jurassic Park will be taking place at the Simcoe Norfolk County Library tomorrow to cheer on the Raptors. It's by donation, so any funds that are raised are going to the Norfolk Kids Sport Foundation. So I wanted to let people know about that. And I was just wondering, I keep forgetting about this. Is there any update on the Waterford EMS base?
Go ahead.
Through the chair, chair to the councillor. Yes, site plan has been completed, and in talking to Marlene Watson from Public Works, she is working with the engineer to get a tender ready sometime in the very near future. This project has drug on, but it's getting to the final stages.
Councillor Shirley, anything else?
No, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Mr. Taylor, anything else? Okay, I guess we are going into closed session. Go ahead.
That committee convened in closed session at 6:37 p.m. pursuant to sections 239B, C, and D of the Municipal Act, as the subject matter pertains to a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board, personal matters about identifiable individuals, including municipal or local board employees, and a matter of labor relations or employee negotiations. We just need a mover and seconder.
Taylor? And seconder? All those in favor? That is carried. Moving on. We'll have that one.